Chapter 41-47. Swish, 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 swish. With a light sound, a layer of ink-like darkness suddenly appeared within 1,000 li of the demonic array. In this darkness, a lightning-like trace appeared in an instant, and at the end of this trace, Xiao Hua's figure appeared in a slightly sorry state. As soon as Xiao Hua's figure appeared, his divine sense valiantly swept over 1,000 li range. Puff puff. A series of explosions sounded in all directions, and the low-level demons near Xiao Hua were shattered by Xiao Hua's divine sense. Strange. Xiao Hua was a little baffled. There is no demon above the level of demon commander within 1,000 li. Which demon can restrict this old man's teleportation? Then, Xiao Hua's figure flashed and disappeared again, and this time, his divine sense was left outside his body, paying attention to the strange scene in the surroundings. Sure enough, in just a moment, the demonic sense that swept over Xiao Hua before moved again, and a pitch-black demon body appeared in the surrounding void along with the demonic sense, surrounding Xiao Hua within 1,000 li, revealing the traces of Xiao Hua's teleportation. Xiao Hua teleported in the demonic array. At the beginning, it was still easy, but in the end, the space seemed to be blocked by mud, and became more and more difficult to move. He had no choice but to use the lightning escape, and this was quite difficult to move 1,000 li. Looks like a demon discovered this Xiao, and then controlled the demonic array to stop this Xiao. At this time, Xiao Hua already somewhat understood, but at this time, his figure had already reached the edge of the demonic array, and Xiao Hua had already seen wisps of fire in the blood-colored darkness. Xiao Hua's figure appeared, and with a wave of his hand, he took out the demonic banner he snatched from Indra's hand, and the demonic chi around his body surged into the demonic banner, and then, after a little test, hundreds of blood threads flashed on the demonic banner, and fell on the blood array. The blood array slightly trembled, and then, according to the blood threads, it divided into hundreds of pieces, and these hundreds of pieces of the blood array began to tremble, gradually forming a whirlpool-like demon head. Once the demon head was formed, it actually opened its mouth and said coldly, "Human, actually wants to pass off as a demon to pass through this senior's body, don't you think? You are too delusional?" As he spoke, a faint demonic sense rushed into the demonic banner in Xiao Hua's hand along the blood threads. Boom boom. A series of muffled booms rang out as the demonic banner was easily destroyed by the demonic sense. You. At this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly came to a realization and shouted in disbelief, "You are the devil spirit of the devil formation?" Ha ha! That spinning devil head laughed strangely, causing the surrounding devil array to tremble. "You have been in this sovereign's body for so long, and you only found out now? Damn it!" Xiao Hua was somewhat aghast. He naturally lowered his head and looked around. In his heart, he really couldn't believe that such a large demonic array actually had intelligence. Moreover, it even formed a demonic spirit. If that was the case, then everything that had happened to him in the demonic array would make sense. Aoo! Just at this time, a powerful devil sense that could overturn the sky appeared from afar like a hurricane, and a roar followed. "Xiao Hua, you actually followed me to the demonic array? Then don't leave. Devil Emperor." Hearing this, Xiao Hua couldn't help but smile bitterly. In front of him was a devil spirit of the demonic array whose depth was unknown, and behind him was a devil emperor whose strength surpassed his own. Although Xiao Hua didn't know the extent of the devil emperor's injuries, Xiao Hua was clear about his own situation. At this time, it was absolutely not suitable for him to fight. Otherwise, death was secondary. If he fell into the devil path, that would be terrible. Therefore, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. Rarely seen, an 8th-rank scattered nascent soul poured all of his true essence into the Kunlun mirror. Woo-woo. The entire Kunlun mirror trembled, as if it was cheerfully chirping. On the surface of the Kunlun mirror, a faint bloodlight and flame appeared. There were several layers of bloodlight, but there was only one flame. The corner of Xiao Hua's mouth slightly smiled. His index and middle fingers came together and formed a seal. His mouth also uttered a draconic voice, "Ha ha." As Xiao Hua's 2 fingers touched the flame on the Kunlun mirror, a several jong large light beam came out of the Kunlun mirror and directly shone into the blood array. However, the strange thing was that the light beam seemed to fall into the blood wave and the devil flame, but the light beam didn't really touch the blood wave. It was as if the light beam opened a passage out of thin air. Damn it. Xiao Hua sighed. This Xiao is now a cultivator before the Mahayana stage. I used all of my true essence of an 8th rank scattered nascent soul to open the passage of the Kunlun mirror. Moreover, this passage seems to be only a few hundred li. If I want to really control this Kunlun mirror, I'm afraid it will be difficult to succeed without immortal spiritual power, right? Kunlun mirror, how can this guy be here? At this time, the devil spirit of the demonic array also roared. The blood array within 100 li surged and rushed towards the light beam of the Kunlun mirror. Unfortunately, no matter how the blood sea wreaked havoc, it couldn't touch the light beam. However, within 100 li of Xiao Hua, a crazy devil chi was born. The devil emperor borrowed the power of the demonic array and caught up to Xiao Hua in a moment. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. His figure moved the light beam into the Kunlun mirror. With a wave of his big sleeve, the Kunlun mirror disappeared into the demonic array along with the light beam. Chase. After a few breaths, Huang Yu's figure appeared. His face was full of anger. He only hesitated for a moment and shouted angrily. The blood array rushed out of the demonic array and covered him. It also disappeared. Outside the demonic formation, there was a huge formation that looked like a sea of fire that protected ruins. However, this formation wasn't as tight as the demonic formation. There were many flaws in it, and there were many elements of earth, fire, wind, and thunder that rushed out from the flaws. At this time, in the sky several li away from the demonic array, a 4-colored halo flashed. That halo rapidly rotated and instantly formed a light ball. In a moment, Xiao Hua's figure appeared in the light ball. When the light scattered, Xiao Hua hurriedly looked back at the demonic array several hundred li away and released his divine sense. However, just as his divine sense landed on the demonic array soared with 100 zhong of flames and burned his divine sense. Damn it, how can this demonic array be my match? I'm not convinced. Xiao Hua was a little helpless. His figure swayed and flew towards the location of the earth, fire, wind, and lightning. He also knew that it would not be long before the demonic emperor rushed out of the demonic array to kill him. After flying for a while, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of something. He took out the Kunlun mirror and shook it, dragging that young cultivator out. The cultivator looked like he was adjusting his breathing. When he suddenly appeared, he was sitting cross-legged in the air. He did not even open his eyes. Xiao Hua anxiously shouted, "Fellow Daoist, quickly come and help I have already escaped from the demonic array. However, under this demonic array, there is a Dao sect array. I'm not familiar with it. I wonder if fellow Daoist has any ideas." The cultivator hurriedly opened his eyes. When he scanned with his divine sense, his expression changed greatly. He said in shock, This is the demonic array's realm protection array. What can I do?" As he spoke, the cultivator's divine sense naturally swept towards the demonic array above his head. Gaga. A strange laugh came from the demonic array. Several strands of the cultivator's divine sense were actually devoured. Oh my God. When did the demonic array besiege my ruins? No wonder all the transmission arrays can't be used. The cultivator's face was really ashen. He looked at Xiao Hua in surprise and cried out involuntarily, "You are walking into a trap." Xiao Hua looked at this cultivator who was as unlucky as him. This cultivator must have thought of all sorts of ways to return to the ruins, but he didn't expect that what greeted him was a dead end. Ao! At this time, 1,000 zhong tall demonic pillar rushed out from the demonic array in the distance. The demonic emperor stepped out on the clouds. "Oh right, I have a communication talisman. I don't know if it can be used." The cultivator suddenly woke up and hurriedly took out a jade talisman from the Sumeru ring. He activated his magic power and said, "After all, this realm protection array is rarely activated." "I don't know." "Good, it can be used." "That's great." The communication talisman drew an arc in the air and disappeared into the array. The cultivator let out a long sigh of relief and said with a smile, "Daoist Master Xiao, don't worry. Wait until we enter the realm protection array. Not to mention the demonic emperor, even if the demonic master comes, we don't have to be afraid." Hearing this, Xiao Hua understood that this cultivator definitely came back from other places in the cultivation world. If it was a cultivator from the ruins, no one would say such shameless word. If the realm protection array was useful, how could the demonic emperor avoid the array and sneak into the ruins? However, after a moment, Xiao Hua frowned again and a new doubt arose. That's not right. Since the demonic emperor of the demonic array can enter the ruins realm protection array, even if they sent the demonic array in bit by bit over the years, they would have sent all the demonic array in. Why are they guarding the demonic array? Could it be, they want to finish it in one fell swoop? Kill all the cultivators in the ruins all at once. Only in this way can they collect more souls. But, if that's the case, what about the wandering souls they killed over the years? Most of them have already been collected by this Xiao, what else can they get? Forget it, I don't care so much. When I go back this time, I'll go to every corner of the ruins and pull the firewood from under the cauldron of the demonic array. Maybe the demonic array will withdraw when they see that there are no more wandering souls. Just as he was thinking, he saw a several hundred jong long fire pillar rushing out of the realm protection array. A white-haired cultivator appeared in the fire pillar, holding the communication talisman that the young cultivator had sent out. The young cultivator didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "This one is Yang Chong, a disciple of the Misty School. I went out to gain experience and have just returned from the Tai Bai astral boundary. I was trapped in the demonic array. Fortunately, Daoist Master Xiao of the Fortune Gate rescued me. Now that the two of us have escaped from the demonic array, the demonic emperor is chasing after us. Please let us enter the realm protection array." Oh! Who would have thought that the young cultivator's face would turn strange after hearing the young cultivator's words? His gaze actually pierced through the fire pillar and looked at Xiao Hua. Sigh. Seeing that the cultivator guarding the realm protection array didn't answer and didn't open the realm protection array, Xiao Hua had a bad feeling in his heart. Chapter 41-48. Sure enough, as Xiao Hua expected, the old cultivator replied indifferently, "Yang Chong, don't blame I for being unreasonable. It's just that the ruins is facing an unprecedented crisis. For some reason, the devil race has been besieging the ruins for hundreds of years. In these hundreds of years, not only have the cultivators in the ruins not been able to go out, but none of the disciples outside the ruins have returned. This poor Daoist does not know how you were teleported back, but this poor Daoist knows that Xiao Hua possesses the devil race's cultivation technique. Previously, in Ping River, he fought with the devil emperor in front of your Misty Sect's sect master. He has the devil saber in his hand and scared the devil emperor away, and he himself disappeared into thin air. Now, he appeared here again. Yang Chong, do you think I will let you in? No way, right? Yang Chong was shocked and looked at Xiao Hua with some disbelief. His figure actually flew back several meters with a vigilant face. Damn it. Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the cultivator inside the fire pillar. He really wanted to punch his nose and see what it looked like if his nose was crooked. Although he was an outer world cultivator, in order to kill the devil race in the ruins, he brought the Fortune Gate's disciples out of the Shenhua continent. In order to save the White Cloud Monastery and the other 8 sects in the southwest border, tens of thousands of Fortune Gate's disciples died. He was trapped by the heavenly demon for more than 10 years and experienced life and death. Xiao Hua believed that what he did was much more than a real ruins cultivator, but in the eyes of some people, these merits were not worth a trace of trust. He only revealed his devil body and devil saber. Moreover, this was to save hundreds of thousands, no, millions of Misty School's disciples. Just because of this suspicion, the cultivator in the realm protection array actually didn't let him in and let the devil emperor chase him. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly turned cold. Xiao Hua was even disappointed. He looked up at the devil array and calculated in his heart. With his strength, since he came here, he might be able to break through the devil array. If he could break through the devil array, then the world outside the devil array was huge. He already had the cultivation world star chart in his hand. Although there was no transmission array to return to the hidden immortal continent, who knew if there were other places? Escaping would be better than dying here, right? However, This thought merely flashed through Xiao Hua's mind. After all, Sun Jian, his clones, and the several 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples fighting the devil army were still inside the ruins. Xiao Hua couldn't possibly abandon them and live alone. At this moment, another voice sounded beside his ear. Yang Chong flew over with an apologetic look on his face, as if he was embarrassed by his vigilance just now. Spiritual Master Xiao, I don't know what your identity is, but now I have no other choice. He could only choose to believe in the real person. Moreover, I also knew that if the Daoist Master wanted I's life, he probably wouldn't even need to enter the magnetic space, for I would have already fallen. Therefore, I am willing to advance and retreat together with Daoist Master Xiao. Yang Chong's words were very good, but Xiao Hua didn't feel particularly comfortable listening to them. The reason was very simple. Xiao Hua had already seen through Yang Chong's thoughts. After all, Yang Chong's thoughts were nothing more than two considerations. First, since Xiao Hua could save Yang Chong from the magnetic blood array, it meant that Yang Chong had value. Xiao Hua was still outside the realm-protecting Grand Formation, so Yang Chong's value was still there. If Xiao Hua wanted to use Yang Chong to enter the ruins, then he couldn't kill Yang Chong. Secondly, it was even simpler. Compared to the ferocious devil race, Xiao Hua looked like a human and was pleasing to the eye. Compared to the murderous aura behind him, Yang Chong was willing to bet on his own moral standing and Xiao Hua's moral standing. But Xiao Hua looked at Yang Chong with a smile and said, "What if I have other intentions and want to use your identity to enter the ruins?" Yang Chong's face turned slightly red, then he raised his head and nodded vigorously, saying, "Yes, I do have an idea in my heart. Because I don't know Daoist Master at all. Although Daoist Master saved me from the devil array, Daoist Master Xiao was able to come and go freely in the devil array where devils were dancing wildly. Daoist Master Xiao was also able to come and go freely in the magnetic space where it was extremely difficult for human cultivators to get close. How could I not doubt Daoist Master's motives? However, I am also a human. I would rather die in the hands of a human like Daoist Master than die in the hands of a devil race. Although Xiao Hua nodded, his eyes flickered again. He ignored the devil sense that had already swept over him. After Yang Chong finished speaking, he raised his voice to the cultivator inside the fire pillar and said, "I risked my life to teleport back from the Tai-Bai astral boundary because I have an important message to send back. Since I can't return to the Misty School at this time, I ask fellow Daoist to spread this message to the various sects in the ruins. Please speak, fellow Daoist Yang." The cultivator inside the fire pillar nodded indifferently, unmoved. Yang Chong looked at the Devil Emperor in the distance who was chasing over. His face turned slightly red, and he said loudly, "This Yang has received a top-secret message. The Moon God realm may have already experienced a great desolate starstorm. Although the ruins are remote, it will be destroyed by this great desolate starstorm sooner or later. I ask all the sects in the ruins to make early plans. I know. I will definitely report this to the assembly hall." A trace of shock appeared on the cultivator's face as he transmitted his voice. Then, the old cultivator looked at Xiao Hua again. At this time, the flames around the cultivator inside the fire pillar began to sway. Obviously, he was affected by the Devil Emperor's devil sense. However, the old cultivator's voice also came, "Daoist Master Xiao, it's not that I don't believe you. I also don't want to believe you. After all, your Fortune Gates fight in the southwest border is obvious to all the cultivators in the ruins. However, I don't have the qualifications to believe you. Even more so, I don't have the qualifications to let you in. I protect the Great Boundary Protecting Formation, and I shoulder the lives of hundreds of millions of human cultivators in the ruins. I can't act on my own. I only have two questions for Daoist Master Xiao. First, if you were in my place, would Daoist Master Xiao dare to let me and Yang Chong into the formation? Second, is other people's opinion more important, or is your own action more important?" At this point, the fire pillar's flames suddenly extinguished, and the cultivator's figure also disappeared along with the flames. "Ha ha!" Xiao Hua first lowered his head, then clapped his hands and laughed loudly. "I act on my own will, my will is my heart is Ren Xiaoyao. Who cares if the sky collapses or the earth sinks? With that, Xiao Hua waved his sleeve and covered Yang Chong, saying, "Yang Chong, if you believe this Xiao, then don't resist." Sensing the powerful magic power that completely confined him, Yang Chong smiled bitterly and said, "Daoist Master Xiao, although this one wants to struggle, I'm not as strong as Daoist Master Xiao." Xiao Hua smiled slightly and didn't say anything more. Carrying Yang Chong, the universe in the sleeve flashed brilliantly, and once again, he appeared on top of the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation extremely far away. However, Xiao Hua's eyes swept and he teleported again, not stopping at all. This happened a few times, and when the Devil Emperor rushed over with a roar, Xiao Hua had already kept Yang Chong into the Kunlun mirror. Devil Qi once again appeared on his body, and he rushed into the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation along the path of the Devil Qi from before. The Devil Emperor pounced over, and just as he was about to get close to the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation, boom. Tens of thousands of fire crows flew out from the huge fire pillar and pounced on the Devil Emperor. The Devil Qi around the Devil Emperor surged, and several devil arms formed from white bones waved their devil weapons. Devil flames overflowed into the sky and extinguished some of the fire crows, but the rest of the fire crows still pounced on the Devil Emperor and devoured the Devil Qi around him. The Devil Emperor hesitated for a moment, and with a pu, he spat out a mouthful of dirty blood, extinguishing dozens of fire crows near him. Then, he looked at the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation with hatred, and said in bewilderment, "This Xiao Hua is a little strange. How did he know that this was the place where the devil formation attacked the ruins?" Previously, in order to conceal this place, this emperor urged the devil formation to attack at thousands of earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation. Damn it, after Xiao Hua passes through here today, this loophole will definitely be discovered by the human race. If this emperor wants to enter the ruins again, it will be a lot more troublesome. Damn it, really damn it. As he spoke, the realm protection formation of the ruins surged with a monstrous sea of fire, and groups of fire crows and many fire attribute magic weapons surrounded it with a terrifying aura. Seeing this momentum, the Devil Emperor gritted his teeth and urged the devil clouds to fly toward the devil formation. Even after the Demon Emperor left, the sea of fire didn't stop. It continued to howl as it obscured the earth, fire, wind, and lightning in the area. A dozen or so streaks of dazzling light revolved around the earth, fire, wind, and lightning several times before finally disappearing. The passageway inside the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation was far simpler than Xiao Hua thought. He urged the Devil Qi, and very keenly sensed the aura of the Devil Qi passageway that hadn't disappeared yet, so he landed in it extremely easily. Although the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation in the surroundings was constantly burning and blowing away the Devil Qi on Xiao Hua's body, this wasn't considered dangerous for Xiao Hua. However, in just a moment, a stream of fire several times stronger than the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation began to appear behind Xiao Hua. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed inwardly. How could he not know that this was the realm protection formation that patched up the flaws of the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation? Cursing was one thing, but Xiao Hua wasn't willing to contend against the might of this realm protection formation. He hurriedly focused his mind, and urged his figure to quickly escape, but in the sky several tens of thousands of kilometers away from Ping River, a stream of Devil Qi flashed within the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation. Then, another stream of fiery light rolled out. Whoosh! The Devil Qi was instantly swept away by the fiery light, and a thin human figure flashed out from within the Devil Qi. Wasn't that Xiao Hua? At this time, Xiao Hua was in a somewhat sorry state, but there was a smile on his face. He turned his head to look at the fiery light within the earth, fire, wind, and thunder formation, and spat. Then, he flew to the nearest mountain peak. Xiao Hua released his divine sense, but he couldn't see where he was, so he let Yang Chong out of the Kunlun mirror. Yang Chong looked to his left, and joy appeared on his face. He bowed and said, "Junior thanks Spiritual Master Xiao for saving my life. No need to say anything more." Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "First, tell me about that great desolate starstorm in the moon god realm. When will it arrive? How powerful is this great desolate starstorm, and how will it affect the ruins?" Chapter 41-49. Oh! Hearing this, Yang Chong hurriedly explained, the so-called star explosion is when a planet like the ruins explodes for some reason. Of course, the planet must be big enough. The explosion of such a big planet will create a shockwave, and this kind of power of heaven and earth will spread in all directions. If there are no other planets around the planet, the shockwave will become smaller and smaller, and finally disappear. But if there are other planets affected before the shockwave subsides, that planet will also explode. Then the shockwave will increase again. Amen. This old man understands. Xiao Hua nodded. If the shockwave is big enough, the entire moon god realm will be destroyed by this star explosion? That's right. Yang Chong hurriedly nodded, and said, but this junior is also not sure about this news. After all, the moon god realm is almost boundless for void refinement cultivators like us. Who knows where this star explosion will come from? But since this junior knows this news, I can't not send it to the Misty School. All communication methods and teleportation channels can't be used. This junior just remembered that the Misty School had a teleportation array in Tai-Bai Star Realm a long time ago that was no longer in use. Forget it, no need to say any more. If this star explosion is real, how long will it take to reach the ruins? Xiao Hua waved his hand, stopping Yang Chong from explaining again. Yang Chong hesitated for a moment, and said, at most 10,000 years. Xiao Hua understood, and said thoughtfully, this is the size of the moon god realm, right? Yes. Yang Chong answered honestly. This is the estimation of some seniors, this junior doesn't know. Xiao Hua didn't ask any more about this matter. He looked around and said with a smile, where is this place, do you know? Yang Chong had already released his consciousness. After looking for a moment, he pointed in a direction and said, this place is more than 70,000 miles from Ping River. My Misty School's teleportation array is not far from here. Xiao Hua looked in the direction Yang Chong pointed, and said with a smile, let's go, this old man will go with you to Ping River. There's no need to use any teleportation array. This old man wants to ask Liu Wuxie, when did this old man's good intentions turn into ill intent? Yes. Yang Chong knew that Xiao Hua was angry in his heart, but he didn't dare to say anything, let alone release a messaging talisman, so he answered in a low voice. Xiao Hua's eyes flashed with a fierce light. With a wave of his sleeve, he first imprisoned Yang Chong, then activated the lightning escape technique and flew towards Ping River. As expected, after Xiao Hua flew for a while, he didn't see Ping Jiang. He also couldn't find any trace of Ping Jiang with his spiritual force. Xiao Hua knew that he had flown in the wrong direction. Just as he was about to release Yang Chong, he saw a white-robed scholar with a sword at his waist flying towards a certain direction. Xiao Hua landed in front of this white-robed scholar. Ah! Xiao Hua's sudden appearance startled the white-clothed scholar. But seeing Xiao Hua's appearance, the white-clothed scholar immediately bowed and saluted. Junior Misty School's Yang Haoya greets Senior Xiao. Junior thanks Day Oist for saving my Misty School. Get up. Xiao Hua's heart warmed. He helped this disciple up and said with a smile, where are you going? Junior knew that the sect was besieged by the demon race and hurriedly rushed back to Ping River. Junior's cultivation is limited. Although Junior used the transmission formation, I still couldn't make it back. Yang Haoya hurriedly replied, but Junior also received a message from the sect on the way back. I know Senior's spirit of bravely fighting 2 demon emperors on Ping River. Xiao Hua asked with interest, hey, Yang Haoya, don't forget, this old man might be a spy of the demon race. Spy? Yang Haoya stared blankly for a moment, then laughed. That's the gossip of people with ulterior motives. If Senior was a spy, the Southwest sect would have already fallen into the hands of the demon race. The ruins would have already fallen. How could my Misty School still have a place for Junior to stay? Xiao Hua nodded slightly, then asked again, which direction is the Misty School? Although Yang Haoya was astonished, he didn't dare to ask too much. He pointed to the direction in front of him and said, there's still 30,000 li ahead. There's a small transmission formation of my Misty School, no need. Follow this Xiao and fly there. This time, Xiao Hua didn't dare to use the universe creator. He just raised his hand and grabbed, bringing Yang Haoya to fly in that direction. Naturally, he was corrected twice by Yang Haoya. Xiao Hua's divine sense finally saw the familiar Ping River. Soon after, Xiao Hua flew for a moment and released Yang Chong and Yang Haoya. Seeing Yang Chong appear, Yang Haoya stared blankly for a moment, then hurriedly bowed and said, "Granduncle." Disciple Yang Haoya greets Granduncle. "Why did you suddenly return to Ping River?" Yang Chong naturally didn't recognize Yang Haoya. Yang Haoya explained a few more words before Yang Chong helped him up. Originally, he wanted to explain something, but Xiao Hua said impatiently, "Let's return to Ping River first." "Yes, senior." Yang Chong knew that Xiao Hua was in a bad mood, but he still nodded and followed Xiao Hua to Ping River. At this time, the smoke of war in Ping River had yet to settle. The chaotic Yuan Qi of heaven and earth and the remnant devil Qi were tangled together, and the unpleasant smell of blood still assailed the nostrils. Xiao Hua also sensed that there were many wandering souls nearby that couldn't fall into the 9 springs. They were still lingering around Ping River. Xiao Hua wasn't in the mood to collect these wandering souls. He only looked at the flashing lights of the dozens of big cities in the distance and flew forward. The appearance of Xiao Hua and the other two immediately attracted the attention of the patrolling disciples. Several people came forward to greet them, and several people hurriedly flew away to report. Not long after, many disciples came forward to greet them. Unsurprisingly, all of the disciples had gratitude in their eyes, and the reverence on their faces didn't have any hypocrisy. Looking at these disciples, although there was still some anger in Xiao Hua's heart, he felt that his previous efforts were worth it. He also felt that the injuries on his back were gradually getting better. Although the cultivators of the Misty School had different opinions about Xiao Hua's devil arts, they were all afraid of Xiao Hua. When they heard that Xiao Hua had survived the attack of 2 devil emperors and even appeared in Ping River again, although the disciple who reported didn't say anything, everyone could see that Xiao Hua was condemning them. Therefore, when the vice-sect leader Lian brought a group of Misty School cultivators to welcome Xiao Hua, he had a respectful expression on his face, but his heart was on tenterhooks. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and when he saw that Liu Wuxia wasn't among them, he couldn't help but frown. The vice-sect leader Lian hurriedly went forward and bowed, "Greetings to Daoist Xiao. Junior represents the disciples of the Misty School to thank Daoist Xiao for his help." The other cultivators who came to welcome Xiao Hua also bowed and thanked him. Xiao Hua raised his hand, and a barrier appeared out of thin air, blocking their salutes. Xiao Hua said indifferently, "I don't dare to accept this. I might be a human devil heart, but I joined hands with 2 devil emperors to put on a show in front of the Misty School. I don't deserve any thanks." The vice-sect leader Lian and the others' faces were burning, and they stood there awkwardly. They couldn't continue to bow, and when they stood up, they felt embarrassed. "Where is Liu Wuxia?" Xiao Hua didn't feel like talking to them anymore, so he withdrew his magic and asked. The vice-sect leader Lian took the opportunity to bow, stood up and said, "Daoist Xiao, our sect leader was seriously injured in the battle with the Devil Emperor, and is currently in seclusion to heal her injuries." "Oh." Sect leader Liu Wuxia was injured. Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. The vice-sect leader Lian hurriedly told him what happened after Xiao Hua disappeared, and finally said, "If Daoist Xiao has something important to say, Junior can send a message to the sect leader." "No need." Xiao Hua waved his hand. "It seems that the Devil Emperor really wants to destroy the Misty School. After being injured by this old man, he still wants to attack. Since sect leader Liu is injured, let her heal quickly. Who knows when the Devil Emperor will attack again? At that time, without this Xiao and the Devil Emperor's cooperation to put on a show, I'm afraid the Misty School will be in trouble." "Yes." The vice-sect leader Lian nodded, and glanced at the several disciples beside him who lowered their heads in silence. The anger in his heart was very obvious. The vice-sect leader Lian thought for a moment, and then glanced at Yang Chong and Yang Haoya beside Xiao Hua, and said in a low voice, "Senior, please come to the hall and serve tea." "No need." Xiao Hua waved his hand again and was about to leave. How could Yang Chong not understand the vice-sect leader Lian's intention? He didn't go forward to bow, wasn't it because he was waiting for this opportunity? Yang Chong hurriedly stepped forward and bowed, "Daoist Master Xiao, you saved this junior from the devil array, this junior has nothing to repay you with. Now that you are leaving, this junior will inevitably leave a knot in his heart. How about inviting Daoist Master Xiao to sit in the hall? This junior will offer you a cup of spiritual tea as a token of my thanks. Xiao Hua frowned and hesitated. Xiao Hua had always been soft-hearted. Even if it was a request from an ordinary person, he would still consider it. Not to mention Yang Chong's words in front of the realm-protecting Great Array made Xiao Hua admire him very much. Seeing that there was hope, he hurriedly bowed to the vice-sect leader Lian. Vice-sect leader Lian, martial uncles, this disciple has brought back an extremely bad news. Please report it to the Lingxiang Hall. This matter is a bit tricky. Perhaps Daoist Master Xiao can be of some help to our Misty School. Ah! The vice-sect leader Lian was stunned. Looking at Yang Chong and Xiao Hua, he said in a low voice, could it be that the devil race is going to launch a large-scale attack? Compared to the devil race, it's even more serious. Yang Chong said, not daring to say more. After all, the news of the great desolate starstorm was too shocking. If an ordinary disciple knew about it, it would be hard to avoid panic. How could they still have the mind to fight against the devil race? Then, the vice-sect leader Lian's face showed a slightly exaggerated nervousness. Looking at Xiao Hua in a low voice, he said, Daoist Master Xiao, sect leader Liu is currently in seclusion. Junior, the burden on Junior's shoulders is somewhat heavy. This matter is so serious. Daoist Master came from the outside world. You must have a lot of experience. Is it possible for you to give Junior advice? All right. Xiao Hua slightly nodded. The vice-sect leader Lian was overjoyed, hurriedly bringing Xiao Hua and a group of cultivators into the main hall. Everyone took a seat, and a disciple served spirit tea. Yang Chong took the spirit tea with both hands, respectfully offering it in front of Xiao Hua, thanking Xiao Hua for saving his life. Xiao Hua took the spirit tea, took a sip, and said with a smile, all right, you don't have to be polite in the future. You rushed back to the Misty School from afar and brought back this important news. Just based on this action, this old man will definitely save you. Chapter 4150. This is what Junior should do. Yang Chong hurriedly said with a smile, after all, Junior is a disciple of the Misty School and a cultivator of the ruins. Xiao Hua nodded and looked around. Finally, his gaze fell on Vice-Head Lian and said, Vice-Head Lian, this Xiao already knows about the news brought back by Yang Chong. This matter is indeed troublesome, so the fewer people who know, the better. Leave the necessary people behind, the rest can leave first. Yes, Junior understands. Vice-Head Lian invited Xiao Hua in, not necessarily without the intention of pulling the banner. Hearing Xiao Hua's words, he looked left and right. Only 2 of the cultivators were left, and the rest were allowed to leave the hall. Xiao Hua looked at the disappearing figures of the crowd with a sneer on his face. Needless to say, the ones who were gossiping behind their backs were definitely some of these cultivators. Vice-Head Lian probably also knew the meaning of his words, so he indirectly revealed the Misty School's intention to Xiao Hua. After Vice-Head Lian activated the hall's restriction, Yang Chong told him about the Great Desolate Star outbreak. Although he repeatedly emphasized that this news was not confirmed, Vice-Head Lian and the other 2 Misty School cultivators' faces still turned ashen. Although there were many groundless rumors in this world, how could this kind of news that could wipe out a star field, a world surface, casually appear? Vice-Head Lian looked at the 2 cultivators who were also dumbfounded and asked Xiao Hua, Daoist Xiao, what do you think about this matter? Xiao Hua shrugged and said with a smile, this Xiao has never encountered such a thing, and this Xiao has never heard of it. The reason why this Xiao stayed, besides Yang Chong, was to see if your Misty School has any countermeasures. After all, this Xiao also has a group of disciples who are facing such a calamity. All right. Vice-Head Lian was a little disappointed. He turned to the other 2 cultivators and said, Daoist Xiao, this matter cannot be decided. Junior needs to ask Sect Head to come out of seclusion. Go. Xiao Hua said with a smile, if Sect Head Liu has any good ideas, my Fortune Gate may be able to benefit from it. Daoist Xiao, please wait a moment. Yang Chong stood up apologetically and left with the 2 cultivators, leaving only Yang Chong to accompany Xiao Hua in the hall. Xiao Hua glanced at Yang Chong and asked meaningfully, at this point, do you have any regrets? Yang Chong smiled and said, actually, Junior had already regretted it a little when we were in the demonic array. After all, if this Junior didn't personally send a message back, this Junior wouldn't have fallen into this hopeless situation. But, speaking up to this point, Yang Chong's tone became heavier. When this Junior met Yang Haoya and the juniors of the Misty School, this Junior's regret was already gone. Junior's life and death are no longer important. As long as Junior's nephew can survive, Junior is already satisfied. Sigh, that's right. Xiao Hua sighed. This is the difference between our human race and the devil race. A spirit will pass on the torch. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out a jade bottle. He usually had some injuries, so he wouldn't take too many pills. But this time was different. The two demon emperors were too strong, and the injuries in his body couldn't heal for a long time. He had no choice but to rely on the strength of pills. After Xiao Chen finished eating, Yang Chong asked with concern, "Senior Xiao, are your injuries serious? My Misty School's healing pills are also famous in the ruins." He. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. "Your Misty School's pills may be famous, but they may not be suitable for this old man." Speaking up to this point, Xiao Hua raised his hand and took out a few jade bottles. The jade bottles fell in front of Yang Chong and said, "These are the healing pills this old man refined. Take them." Yang Chong was overjoyed. He hurriedly took them and carefully put them away. Then Xiao Hua thought for a moment and asked, "Yang Chong, if we can repel the devil race, even without the transmission array, the cultivators of the ruins should be able to escape this star explosion, right?" Yang Chong was slightly stunned and said with some confusion, "What does senior mean? This junior doesn't understand." What this old man means is, the transmission array of the ruins seems to have been destroyed by the devil race. Even if the devil race is defeated, the cultivators of the ruins can't rely on the transmission array to leave the ruins and go to other starfields. Then, can they rely on the flying boat or flying their physical body to escape this disaster? Xiao Hua still didn't understand flying in a starfield. Thinking about his previous encounter in the demonic array, he had this doubt. Although Yang Chong was a little surprised, he still explained, "Senior should know that flying through the starfield is not as simple as you think. First, there is no heaven and earth origin energy in the starfield. Human cultivators can only rely on their own abilities and can't fly too far. Second, the starfield looks very peaceful, but there are many dangers inside. Spatial cracks, dust storms, or strange beasts in the starry sky. None of them can be dealt with casually. Third, there is no direction in the starfield. Even if you have a star chart in your hand, it is not easy to find the right path. If you have a flying boat, it may be better than flying with your physical body. However, ordinary flying boats are not much better than cultivators, let alone crossing realms." Xiao Hua listened thoughtfully and nodded from time to time. The difficulties of flying in the starry sky mentioned by Yang Chong were nothing to him. Although he had never really flown in the starry sky, he could recognize the direction in the void, so he should be able to do the same in the starry sky. Moreover, he had a star chart. The only difficulty now was the danger in the starfield, and whether he could fly out of the moon god realm before the arrival of the starfield. While Xiao Hua was thinking, the vice sect master came in with 2 more cultivators. Liu Wuxie was not among them, but at this time, the 3 cultivators no longer had the previous panic on their faces. Instead, it was replaced by a slight smile. It was obvious that they had a card up their sleeve. "Oh." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Could it be that Sect Master Liu already has a countermeasure?" Heh. Yang Chong nodded and explained, "My Sect Master said that even if the starfield comes, it will be thousands of years later. Why are we panicking now? Moreover, my Sect Master also complained that the starfield came too late. If it came now, all the devils would be killed by now." "Oh." Xiao Hua was surprised and asked, "Sect Master Liu seems to have the confidence to escape from the starfield. She is still in seclusion. The current crisis is that the devil race is besieging us. My Sect Master naturally has to treat her injuries first." A cultivator at the side said with a smile, "But Senior Xiao doesn't need to worry. My sect master has already agreed to let Senior and the disciples of the Fortune Gate use our Misty School's secret teleportation formation to leave the moon god realm. Secret teleportation formation? Hearing this, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad premonition and hurriedly asked, weren't the teleportation formations of the ruins destroyed by the devil race? No matter how secret your Misty School's teleportation formation is, Xiao Hua did not finish his words, but the suspicion in his words was very obvious. Vice Sect Master Lian smiled and waved an ancient magic tool in his hand, saying, my sect master has already bestowed this magic tool. Daoist Xiao, please follow this junior to verify it. Okay. Xiao Hua nodded. Looking at the magic tool flying in the Vice Sect Master's hand, he did not have much hope in his heart. Because he had already seen the power of the devil formation. He knew that the devil formation already had its own intelligence. What was a devil spirit? Perhaps no one in the ruins understood it better than him. The devil spirit Xiao Hua was a clear proof. Even the Vice Sect Master didn't bring along Yang Chong and the other two. He only brought Xiao Hua to the depths of the city, to a seemingly ordinary garden. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept through the garden, but he couldn't find anything unusual. However, there were no Misty School disciples within a few li of the garden. Even the disciples on duty in the surrounding palaces were very few. Vice Sect Master Lian activated the magic tool in his hand while explaining, Daoist Xiao, this is my Misty School's forbidden area. Without the sect master's permission, no one can come close. Xiao Hua slightly nodded. His gaze landed on the magic tool in Vice Sect Master Lian's hand. He saw that this magic tool was in a flat oval shape, like a spindle. Under the urging of Vice Sect Master Lian's magic power, this magic tool was suffused with two colors of brilliance. The green color turned into a spinning shape, and the dark green color turned into a flowing water shape. The two colors of brilliance rushed into the air and turned into a pagoda. Immediately after, from the left palace hall, a total of 9 ripples rushed out, respectively landing on the 9 floors of the pagoda. Then, the pagoda began to tremble slightly. Boom! The two colors of brilliance actually let out a thunderous sound and once again fell into the magic tool. At this time, it was as if Vice Sect Master Lian was struck by lightning. The true qi in his body surged into the magic tool like a flood. In a short moment, Vice Sect Master Lian's face turned somewhat pale. Go! Seeing that the magic tool also had the shape of a pagoda, Vice Sect Master Lian hurriedly pointed at the magic tool and chanted an incantation. Woo! The magic tool immediately fell into the garden. Following the magic tool's fall, the entire garden began to change. The entire garden began to slowly rotate. Regardless of whether it was flowers, grass, or mountain rocks, everything was twisted into a whirlpool. A pitch-black passage, emitting a desolate aura, appeared in front of Xiao Hua and Vice Sect Master Lian. Senior Xiao, please. Vice Sect Master Lian looked at it for a moment and raised his hand to indicate that he would be the first to jump in. Xiao Hua's divine sense entered to take a look. He discovered that his divine sense was actually blocked by a layer of strange restriction. Thus, he also urged his body to follow behind Vice Sect Master Lian. The passage was very long. Xiao Hua and Vice Sect Master Lian flew for no less than half a cup of tea's time before a huge palace door appeared in front of them. In front of the palace door, the magic tool from before had already turned into a spindle shape and stopped in midair. Vice Sect Master Lian took the magic tool and opened his mouth to spit out a mouthful of blood essence. Several special seals were cast on the blood essence, and the blood essence transformed into the two characters ethereal. Sigh. Looking at these two simple characters, Xiao Hua suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air. This was because when these two blood-colored characters fell into Xiao Hua's eyes, they unexpectedly gave off a long-lasting sense of familiarity. However, without waiting for Xiao Hua to look again, Vice Sect Master Lian pushed with both hands and the two characters fell on both sides of the palace door. Boom! A layer of blood color flashed on top of the jasper door. Then, as if a spring breeze blew past, the entire door grew many flowers and plants, surrounding Xiao Hua and Vice Sect Master Lian. Chapter 4151. Xiao Hua scanned with his divine sense and his expression changed. This was because these flowers and plants contained a great amount of power. Moreover, the entire flower and plant seemed to be an extremely strange great array. This great array did not lose to the innate divine restriction and was even more powerful than the Misty School's great array. Vice Sect Master Lian did not panic. He raised his hands and pointed at the flowers and plants in front of him like a butterfly. Xiao Hua could see that Vice Sect Master Lian was sending out magic power to the places he pointed at. Moreover, the magic power was different. After Vice Sect Master Lian pointed at 365 places, Shua, the entire flower and plant great array disappeared as if it was washed away. Moreover, the jade door opened at an unknown time. Who? Vice Sect Master Lian let out a long breath. He turned his head and said with a bitter smile, Daoist Xiao, please don't laugh at this, junior. This is the flower touch technique that all the disciples of my Misty School must cultivate. This junior did not know what it was used for. Who would have thought that it would be used here? This junior has not practiced this flower touch technique for several hundred years. When I used it, it was actually somewhat jerky. Hehe, let's go in. Xiao Hua smiled. He understood that Vice Sect Master Lian was hinting that this technique was a secret of the Misty School. He hoped that Xiao Hua would not remember it. Senior, please. Vice Sect Master Lian led Xiao Hua into the main hall. The main hall's door had a divine sense restriction. When Xiao Hua entered the main hall, he could clearly see the main hall's situation. Xiao Hua could not help but be surprised. Because inside the main hall was not a hall. Instead, it was a huge space that was at least 1,000 li wide. In this space, a huge bluestone teleportation array was quietly floating in the center. Although this teleportation array did not have any brilliance, a strange desolate aura was emitted from the bluestone. Vice Sect Master Lian looked at Xiao Hua's astonishment and proudly said, Senior, this teleportation array was specially built by the ancestors of my Misty School for the disciples of my Misty School after they entered the Moon God Palace. According to my sect master, it can directly lead to the Tai Bai astral boundary. So that's how it is. No wonder the Misty School has a realm-crossing teleportation formation. Xiao Hua came to a sudden realization and a pensive expression appeared on his face. This teleportation array consumes a lot of primordial stones to use, and it will also cause strange phenomena, so my sect master has warned us not to use the teleportation array. We can only check if it can be used. Ian, you go ahead and check. Xiao Hua nodded, then asked, how about this old man also go and take a look? Vice Sect Leader Lian thought for a while and nodded, no problem. As a result, Xiao Hua's figure floated into the transmission array and carefully examined it. Even the Vice Sect Master flew to the top of the transmission array and struck out a series of hand seals. Along with the hand seals, every part of the bluestone transmission array flashed with a milky white brilliance. After half a meal's worth of time, even the Vice Sect Master stopped and looked at Xiao Hua with a smile on his face. Naturally, Xiao Hua had finished reading long ago. At this moment, seeing that Vice Sect Leader Lian had stopped, he opened his mouth and said, Vice Sect Leader Lian, this old man suggests that you activate the transmission array. Although there is no problem with the transmission array, it does not mean that the transmission channel will not be destroyed by the demons. Yes, this junior has already checked. Vice Sect Leader Lian said with a smile, this transmission array is not only in good condition, but the transmission channel is also completely normal. But with the hand seals you just used. Xiao Hua did not know whether to laugh or cry. Yes. Vice Sect Leader Lian looked at Xiao Hua strangely, puzzled. Could it be that you have to activate the transmission array to know if the transmission channel is normal? My ruins transmission array is checked like this. En. Xiao Hua's eyes turned a few times, but he did not comment, and asked again, is there anything else you want to check, Vice Sect Leader Lian? No. Vice Sect Leader Lian answered honestly. Good. Xiao Hua smiled and said, you are fine, but this old man still has something to do. Senior, what else do you want? Vice Sect Leader Lian was stunned, and at this moment, Xiao Hua waved his big sleeve and used the Heaven and Earth sleeve technique, immediately imprisoning Vice Sect Leader Lian. Vice Sect Leader Lian was stunned. He really did not know what Xiao Hua was doing, and he also did not expect Xiao Hua to suddenly attack. However, In just a moment, Vice Sect Leader Lian's face changed greatly, as if he had thought of something. However, at this time, everything did not allow him to resist. Xiao Hua raised his hand and waved, sending Vice Sect Leader Lian out of the palace door, and then his hands formed a hand seal, and a hand seal was release. Vice Sect Leader Lian stood outside the palace door in a daze, and in his heart, there was a kind of rejoicing that he was not killed by Xiao Hua at that time. Of course, in addition to this rejoicing, Vice Sect Leader Lian was also somewhat regretting that he trusted Xiao Hua too much. Although the palace door was open, there was a restriction on the palace door, and no matter the brilliance or the roar of the palace, the people outside the palace could not hear it. After waiting for a full meal's time, Xiao Hua walked out of the palace door and looked at the pale Vice Sect Leader Lian. Xiao Hua waved his big sleeve and released the restriction on Vice Sect Leader Lian, and said indifferently, "This old man's matter is done, we can go now." Vice Sect Leader Lian whispered, "Senior Xiao, what matter do you have?" "Nothing." Xiao Hua did not answer Vice Sect Leader Lian's question, and said, "You go in and see if there is any damage to your Misty School's transmission array." "Okay." Vice Sect Leader Lian had long wanted to go in, and after hearing Xiao Hua's words, he hurriedly flew in. But in that space, the huge transmission array was still quietly floating in the air, but the whole space was filled with active heaven-earth origin chi and some chaotic fluctuations, as if it had just been activated. Vice Sect Leader Lian thought of what Xiao Hua had said before, and immediately understood what Xiao Hua had just done. He was somewhat ashamed, and after checking the transmission array's situation, he flew out of the palace, wanting to ask about the transmission array's situation. Unfortunately, when he flew out of the palace, where was Xiao Hua's figure? Vice Sect Leader Lian's heart tightened, and he hurriedly chased out, but unfortunately, until he returned to the Lingxiang Palace, he still did not see Xiao Hua. I'm afraid Senior Xiao has already left the Misty School." Vice Sect Leader Lian sat on the jade chair, looking at the empty palace, and secretly thought, "But, my Misty School's transmission array, can it be used normally?" Misty School's transmission array obviously could not be used. Otherwise, Xiao Hua would not have left in such a hurry to avoid Vice Sect Leader Lian's questioning. However, Xiao Hua also understood, as long as he did not say anything, Vice Sect Leader Lian and the entire Misty School's heart would have a kind of luck, or perhaps a kind of hope. With this kind of hope and luck, these disciples would have the courage to fight the demons to the end. Xiao Hua flew out of Ping River, and after identifying the direction, he prepared to go to the transmission array, but after flying for a moment, he found a familiar figure going to the same transmission array as him. Xiao Hua landed next to that person, and said with a smile, "Yang Haoya, are you going to the transmission array?" "Ayo, Senior Xiao." Yang Haoya was shocked, and hurriedly stopped, bowed and said, "Senior, why don't you stay in my Misty School for a few more days? Why are you leaving in such a hurry? I only scolded them a few words, don't tell me I really want to vent my anger on them." Xiao Hua replied with a smile, "I already scolded them, so why am I not leaving? When your sect leader comes out, I'm afraid he will regain his face." He. Yang Haoya smiled, though they Xiao Hua mentioned were his elders, he did not dare to say anything behind his back. "Don't tell me you also want to leave the Misty School?" Xiao Hua waved his hand, indicating Yang Haoya to continue flying forward, and asked again. Yang Haoya nodded and said, "Junior and a few good friends are in a small team. We were ordered by the conference hall to patrol the vicinity of Leha Mountain. Because Junior heard about the matter of the sect, Junior was worried, so Junior hurriedly returned. Now that the sect is fine, Junior naturally has to rush to Leha Mountain to meet up with my friend." "Hey, not bad." Xiao Hua praised, "As long as the Misty School has a disciple like you, even if there will be a big change in the future, it will be because of you. The fire seed will be able to regain its glory, or Senior Xiao." Yang Haoya was slightly startled, and asked, "Senior, what do you mean?" "Nothing, I'm just lamenting." Xiao Hua smiled and asked, "Who are your good friends?" Seeing that Xiao Hua did not say anything, Yang Haoya was also helpless, and could only reply, "Junior's team has 12 people. They are the disciples of the Misty School, Shandao Sect, Fragrance Cult, Heavy Flow Sect, Immortal Herding Sect, Yang Hong Hall, Jingfei Mountain, and other sects. Among them, Junior and Shindao sects Wan Wuxin are good friends. Oh, you know Wan Wuxin? Xiao Hua immediately thought of the Wan Wuxin he saw in the transmission hub. Senior knows Wuxin? Yang Haoya asked curiously. Why didn't Junior hear him mention it? Xiao Hua shrugged and replied, you should ask Wan Wuxin this question. Haha. Yang Haoya smiled and said, Wuxin is a person who hides his words. Even if Junior asked, he might not say it. Back then, Junior was hunting demonic beasts in the Pinbo Lake, and I was accidentally surrounded by several demonic beasts. Wan Wuxin rushed out to help Junior, and then the two of us worked together to kill the demonic beasts and snatch their cores. Since then, we have become good friends. Even though we are friends who have gone through life and death, there are many things that he won't tell Junior. Haha, everyone has their own personality, this can't be forced. Xiao Hua nodded. At this moment, Yang Haoya hesitated and said, Junior's team has a cultivator that Senior is very familiar with. Oh, very familiar? Xiao Hua muttered and smiled, I don't know many disciples, this person is probably from the fragrance cult. As for whether it is Yu Mingxin or Yu Changming, I can't guess. Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming are both there. Yang Haoya smiled and said, that day at the transmission hub, in order to save Senior, Yu Mingxin used the secret sacrificial technique to summon the phantom of the moon beast. Now, it has become a legend in the ruins. Haha, this little girl. Xiao Hua smiled and said, in order to repay a debt of gratitude, she even sacrificed her own life. This is really beyond my expectations. Chapter 4152. At this point, Xiao Hua's heart moved as he asked, have Yu Mingxin and Wan Wuxin already arrived at Mount Leha? This Junior doesn't know. Yang Haoya answered honestly, but if nothing unexpected happened, they should be at Mount Leha. Of course, if Senior wants to know, why don't you come with Junior to take a look? How could Xiao Hua still dare to meet Yu Mingxin? He hurriedly waved his hand and said, you all have your own matters to attend to. This old man also has his own matters to attend to. This old man won't go with you to Mount Leha. When you see Wan Wuxin and Yu Mingxin, send my regards to them. No problem. Yang Haoya naturally didn't know about Xiao Hua and Yu Mingxin's matters in the heavenly demon fantasyland. He immediately agreed and then asked, however, Senior Xiao, Junior Sister Mingxin seems a little strange. Why did she suddenly wear a veil? No one is allowed to see her appearance. That. Xiao Hua was shocked and hurriedly interrupted Yang Haoya's words. Fly slowly. This old man has some urgent matters and can't wait any longer. Yes, Senior, please. Yang Haoya hurriedly bowed to send him off. Xiao Hua turned into a stream of light and flew far away. Yang Haoya raised his head and looked at Xiao Hua's disappearing figure with admiration. He muttered to himself, Spiritual Master Xiao is indeed a righteous person. Although he is an outsider, he has put in a lot of effort for the survival of our ruins. However, when he said this, a layer of gloominess appeared on his face. He sighed and said, alas, it's a pity that people's hearts are fickle and unpredictable. Spiritual Master Xiao with such a kind heart was actually said to be a demon. I really don't know what those people are thinking. Xiao Hua arrived in front of the teleportation formation and inquired about it. Immediately, a disciple of the Misty School led him to a teleportation formation. As the teleportation formation flashed, Xiao Hua left Ping River again. After Xiao Hua came out of the teleportation formation and flew for more than 1,000 li, he saw a winding mountain range on the horizon. Although the mountain range was still far away from Xiao Hua, its majestic aura along with the fierce wind in the surroundings and the many clouds high up in the sky had already entered Xiao Hua's vision. When Xiao Hua saw that the direction was not too far off, he released his spiritual force as he flew towards the mountain range. Although the clouds in the sky were scattered, there were many vortexes near each cloud that were hard to see with the naked eye. These vortexes blew out fine breezes, and when they reached midair, these breezes mixed together and began to form a strange hurricane. This hurricane enveloped an area of nearly 10,000 miles. Xiao Hua was flying within the hurricane. One after another, the wind blades landed on his protective golden light and actually caused the golden light to flicker. As Xiao Hua's figure went deeper, the wind blades became increasingly powerful. In the center of the array formation, The mountain range that Xiao Hua had seen before was already like a huge dragon coiling on the ground. What surprised Xiao Hua was that there wasn't just one mountain range like this. There were 6 other similar mountain ranges next to it. These 7 mountain ranges had different colors, and they were all in the shape of a rainbow. Moreover, these mountain ranges were in the shape of a spiral. Finally, in the center, they condensed into a conch-like mountain peak that rose from the ground to a height of several thousand zhong. Xiao Hua's spiritual force swept across the mountain peak. Not only was his spiritual force blocked by the array formation, but there were also 7 different kinds of power that were born at the same time and began to use the power of heaven and earth to devour Xiao Hua's spiritual force. Ayo, this sect protecting formation of the fragrance school is really not bad. Not only can it use the innate terrain to draw in the chi of the earth to condense the array, it can also draw in the mutual promotion and suppression of the 5 elements into the chi of heaven and earth. The eye of the array is distributed in the void, making it difficult for people to figure out whether it is real or fake. Xiao Hua was a formation grandmaster. After looking at it for a moment, he had already understood the array formation. His eyes were filled with astonishment. Although the origin of this array formation is not comparable to the Misty School, it is much stronger than the 2 innate divine restriction formations of the Misty School. The person who set up this array formation. I'm afraid it's the same as the senior who set up the teleportation array of the Misty School. They also occasionally passed by the ruins and casually took action, right? Thinking of the Misty School's array formation, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of another matter. That day in Pingjiang, he had promised Liu Wuxie that he would teach the complete Earth Clan Soul Condensing Array and Winnowing Basket Heart Cleansing Array to the Misty School. However, because of the invasion of the 2 demon emperors, Xiao Hua had to hastily fight them. Later on, he even went to the demon array, so this matter was put aside. When Xiao Hua returned to the Misty School, his heart was filled with anger. How could he still think of this matter? As for the cultivators of the Misty School, they were even more afraid to speak. Forget it. Xiao Hua's anger had already disappeared. He thought to himself, when I have time, I'll give the 2 arrays to the Misty School. Just based on the word Misty, it seems extremely familiar. Perhaps this Misty School is related to the Misty School in this Xiao's memory. There's no harm in giving it to them. However, when the time comes, let's see what they have to trade with this Xiao. Since Xiao Hua had released his divine sense, he naturally had no intention of hiding his whereabouts. He originally planned to return to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range after leaving the Misty School, but with Yang Haoya's reminder, he thought of Yu Mingxin's safety. In any case, Yu Mingxin was the first cultivator he had met in the ruins. Moreover, Yu Mingxin had truly saved his life. Although Xiao Hua didn't want to face a young girl who was in love with him, he absolutely couldn't ignore Yu Mingxin's life. Therefore, Xiao Hua came to the 7 Ridge Mountain Range's incense-spreading sect. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over, and not long after, several divine senses descended from the sky. It was the patrolling disciples who were using the array formation's power to investigate. Is it Fortune Gate's Daoist Xiao? A slightly surprised voice came from within the hurricane. That's right, it's this old man. Xiao Hua replied. That voice hurriedly called out, Senior, please wait here for a moment. Junior will send a disciple to send a message to the sect. My sect master has already instructed that if Daoist Xiao comes, we must receive him with the etiquette of a sect master. Ah! Xiao Hua was stunned and asked curiously, your sect master Mo Lianxi actually knew that this old man was coming to preach the incense sect? While they were speaking, a hurricane passage appeared not far from Xiao Hua. Immediately after, an old man wearing a long robe rushed out of the hurricane passage, arrived in front of Xiao Hua, and bowed respectfully. Junior Tsongyun greets Senior Xiao. Get up. Xiao Hua smiled and helped Tsongyun up. He asked again, could it be that your sect master had already predicted that this old man would come to the 7 Ridge Mountain Range? Tsongyun straightened his body and smiled apologetically. Yes, after Yu Mingxin and Yu Changming returned to the 7 Ridge Mountain Range and told Senior about their encounter, the sect master issued an order for us to wait carefully. He said that Daoist Xiao would definitely return to preach the incense sect. Oh! Xiao Hua's heart relaxed. When he first heard Songyun's words, he thought that Mo Lianxi of the incense sect had the ability to predict the future. It seems that Mo Lianxi must have thought that he would come to the Seven Ridge mountain range to pay a visit, so he instructed his disciples. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly remembered something and hurriedly shouted, "Songyun, quickly send a message to your sect master. Don't make any ceremony. This old man hates these things the most. If he makes some dragon or phoenix to welcome me, this old man will turn around immediately. Of course there won't be any dragon or phoenix." Songyun smiled apologetically, but Daoist Xiao is the leader of a sect. If there isn't any ceremony to welcome you, not only will my sect master feel embarrassed, but the other sects will also laugh at my incense sect. When he heard that there was a ceremony to welcome him, Xiao Hua's heart began to tremble. He hated a group of people lining up together and greeting him one after another. Originally, he didn't know him, but now, he had to put on a deliberate smile on his face to curry favor. It was really uncomfortable. Forget it. Xiao Hua stopped and shook his head. This old man better not go. Daoist. Songyun was really anxious. He hurriedly flew in front of Xiao Hua and shouted, "Junior will send a message right now. Quick, send a message to the sect master. Don't make any ceremony." At this time, a few disciples just happened to fly out of the hurricane passage. Songyun didn't even think and hurriedly ordered. The two disciples didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly turned around. Songyun stood pitifully in front of Xiao Hua. He had seen many Dao sect cultivators who liked to show off. Some sect masters came to visit the incense sect and couldn't wait for him to move all his disciples over. They also couldn't wait for the incense sect to come out in full force to welcome them. Fortunately, the incense sect was one of the three great sects in the ruins. There was no need for them to deliberately flatter the sect masters of other sects. However, this was the first time he saw a cultivator like Xiao Hua who regarded etiquette like a snake or scorpion. "Let's go." Xiao Hua glanced at Songyun and ordered, "Don't wait for your sect master to come. You lead the way, hurrah." "Senior, you don't want to wait for my sect master," Songyun said halfway and immediately came to his senses. He hurriedly shrunk his neck and said, "Senior, please." The sound of wind was loud in the hurricane passage. Xiao Hua casually moved his body and flew forward like falling rain. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the sound of wind gradually decreased. A kind of vigorous and steady aura suddenly intensified. Xiao Hua understood that this was the location of the incense sect's 5 elements formation. However, before he could use any divine ability, he saw a 7-colored brilliance soar into the sky from the distance. The brilliance let out a rumbling sound, shaking the sky for nearly 1,000 li. From the distant conch-shaped mountain peak, it directly landed in front of Xiao Hua's eyes and turned into a 7-colored rainbow bridge. A voice fell along with the rainbow bridge, "I am Mo Lianxi. On behalf of the incense sect, I welcome Daoist Xiao." Immediately, in front of Xiao Hua's eyes, a 3-colored brilliance emerged from the rainbow bridge. It turned into the appearance of a young master in embroidered clothes and cupped his hands in greeting. "I, Xiao Hua, greet sect master Mo." Xiao Hua couldn't be disrespectful and also cupped his hands in greeting. "Daoist, please. Daoist has come from afar. I came late to welcome you." The young master in embroidered clothes' appearance became clearer. It was the appearance of an elegant youth. This youth had white teeth and red lips. His eyes contained a smile. A sense of intelligence flowed out from the youth's eyes. He looked similar to a student of the academy. Chapter 4153. He. Seeing Mo Lianxi's appearance, Xiao Hua couldn't help but think of his youth before he entered the nascent soul stage. His impression of Mo Lianxi was very good. He raised his hand and said with a smile, "Sect Master Mo, please." Mo Lianxi nodded. Her figure was like lightning as she flew towards the end of the rainbow bridge. Xiao Hua also moved his body and followed behind. As they flew closer, Xiao Hua could clearly see that on the other side of the rainbow bridge was a huge palace. Not only did it cover the entire mountain, even the 7 mountain ridges were under it. Moreover, this palace was in the shape of a flower. The flower had 7 petals, each corresponding to the 7 mountain ridges. Even the color of the petals corresponded to the mountain ridges. Where Xiao Hua's gaze landed, the seven-colored palace had a kind of feeling as if it was about to fly away, like a flower swaying in the wind. As Mo Lianxi landed, in the center of the flower, in front of a huge palace, there were only a few women in colorful clothes standing gracefully. When these female disciples saw Xiao Hua, they immediately bowed and saluted. They called out, "Junior greets Daoist Master Xiao, Sweat." Seeing the peerless beauty of these female disciples, Xiao Hua's heart slightly twitched. He hurriedly waved his hand and helped the girls up. He smiled and said, "All of you, rise." "Ha ha." Mo Lianxi laughed and said, "Daoist Xiao is indeed a person with a temperament. This little one also hates those complicated formalities. It's really boring. It's better to have a few flower-like girls to accompany you and admire the flowers under the moon." Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He waved his hand and said, "Sect Master Mo's words are a bit inappropriate, right? Complicated formalities and admiring the flowers under the moon have nothing to do with it. Hehe, that's what I meant." Mo Lianxi didn't care about the meaning of Xiao Hua's words. She pointed at the two female disciples and said, "You two, serve Daoist Xiao well, otherwise, I'll hold you responsible." "Yes." The two women were beautiful, fat and thin. They answered and immediately walked over. They held Xiao Hua's arms on both sides. Their softness and warmth immediately stuck to him. The admiration in their eyes didn't seem to be fake. They respectfully said, "Daoist, please." The two female disciples not only had delicate looks, their temperament was also refined. Their eyes didn't have any foxy charm. However, Xiao Hua already didn't get close to women for tens of thousands of years. Although his Dao heart was firm, he didn't cultivate the virgin technique. The moment he touched these fleshy bodies, he felt his heart was raging. Damn it. Xiao Hua hurriedly activated his heart technique and cursed inwardly. He knew that he was injured, and it was the Devil Emperor who injured him. His willpower was insufficient. Since he knew that he couldn't resist, Xiao Hua simply didn't pretend to be an expert. He raised his hand and waved it, saying, "Sect Leader Mo, quickly let your two female disciples leave. I have been heavily injured Daoist Xiao Hua, ISSS. Now, I can't take this kind of temptation. If I do something inappropriate, I'm afraid it won't be good for either of us." Mo Lianxi's eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. He naturally knew everything that had happened in the ethereal sect. He had also hypothesized a few excuses that Xiao Hua would use to decline. He had even assumed that Xiao Hua would not decline. However, he had not expected that Xiao Hua, who was at the Dao transformation realm, would so frankly admit that he could not be tempted by women. Mo Lianxi smiled and said, "Daoist Xiao, don't think too much. The female disciples of the Misty School are all top-quality cauldrons." At the same time, Daoist Xiao chased away the two Daoist emperors who attacked the Misty School. "Not only did you save the Misty School, you also saved the ruins. The female disciples of the Fragrance sect are very willing to offer their hearts for Daoist Xiao's recovery. Don't worry, Daoist Xiao Hua. They are sincere." "Yes, Daoist Xiao." The two beautiful disciples said sincerely, "Senior has done so much for the ruins. We are willing to offer our lives to Daoist Xiao Hua as long as we can help Daoist Xiao Hua recover." So that's how it is. Xiao Hua finally understood. He thought that Mo Lianxi of the Fragrance sect was probing and roping him in, but he didn't think that there was such a layer of true meaning. Since that was the case, Xiao Hua couldn't accept it even more. He gently pulled his arm out of the embrace of the two female disciples. His movements were so careful and gentle, as if he was afraid of touching fragile porcelain. When the two female disciples saw Xiao Hua like this, their faces were full of disappointment. However, the luster in their eyes became even brighter and their arms also loosened. Xiao Hua pulled his arm out and cupped his hands, saying, "Sect Leader Mo, this Xiao understands your intentions. However, if this Xiao's injuries were to spoil the chastity of these two female disciples, even if this Xiao's strength increases greatly, this Xiao's heart will not be at ease." "Chastity? What is chastity?" Mo Lianxi was slightly stunned and asked back. Xiao Hua sweated profusely. Chastity was the concept of Confucian cultivators. The ruins was a corner of the cultivation world. Although Mo Lianxi was the sect leader of the Misty School, she probably hadn't heard of chastity before, right? However, since that was the case, Xiao Hua also understood that this Misty School in the ruins was definitely not the Misty School he was looking for. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There's no need to elaborate on what chastity is. Sect leader Mo only needs to know that the hardest thing to bear is the grace of a beauty. This Xiao has received the grace of a beauty, but I'm afraid that I won't be able to repay it. Since that's the case, it's better not to touch it. What repayment or no repayment? This is all their own will, there's no need for any repayment tilde." Mo Lianxi said disdainfully, "If Daoist won't spoil his Dao foundation because of plucking yin to replenish yang, then feel free to try my Misty School's secret technique. You must know that in the ruins, who knows how many disciples of sects have come to our door and are willing to tie the knot with my Misty School's female disciples." In an instant, Xiao Hua suddenly understood why Yu Mingxin treated him like that. He smiled bitterly and then said seriously, "Sect leader Mo, people of different paths cannot make plans together. This old man didn't come for this matter. He. Good, good." Mo Lianxi smiled and pushed the female disciple in her arms out and said, "People often say that guests should follow the host's wishes. Today, I can only follow the host's wishes." "Very good." Xiao Hua clapped and said with a smile, "Sect leader Mo, please find a secluded hall. I have an important matter to discuss with sect leader." Don't be anxious, Daoist Xiao." Mo Lianxi's eyes slightly narrowed again and said with a smile, "I have already sent disciples to find Yu Mingxin. Taking advantage of this time, I will introduce a few elders of my sect to Daoist. I also have an important matter to discuss with Daoist." Xiao Hua's eyelids twitched and he said somewhat helplessly, "Sect leader Mo, when this Xiao came to Misty School, this Xiao had already seen young Haoya who was together with Yu Mingxin. If this Xiao is here for my own personal matters, why would I come to Misty School? Wouldn't it be better to directly find Yu Mingxin? Sect leader Mo, if this is the case, wouldn't this Xiao be in trouble again? So Daoist Xiao didn't come for the important matter of Yu Mingxin ah?" Mo Lianxi replied with a sudden realization. However, this sudden realization clearly wasn't a sudden realization. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's heart was moved. He stared at Mo Lianxi for a few breaths of time and then said word by word, "Sect leader Mo, what do you mean? Could it be that if I didn't come for Yu Mingxin, I couldn't come to Misty School? Or, sect leader Mo already knew that this Xiao would definitely come to Misty School and you are testing this Xiao?" Ari. A trace of gloominess appeared on Mo Lianxi's face. She nodded slightly and sighed. This one naturally knew that Daoist Xiao would come. Moreover, this one knew when I heard Daoist Xiao's name. This one hopes that I heard wrong and that Daoist Xiao isn't that person. Unfortunately, Daoist Xiao still came. Although this one doesn't know what important matter Daoist Xiao brought, this one. At this point, Mo Lianxi stopped and looked at the few female disciples on the left. She waved her hand and said, "You all can leave." "Yes, sect leader." The few female disciples bowed and left. Among them, 2 of them looked at Xiao Hua reluctantly. After the few female disciples left, Mo Lianxi said, "Let's go, Daoist Xiao. Let's go to Bright Palace and tell this one what is important enough for me to wipe out the incense sect." "Ah!" Mo Lianxi lifted her foot. Xiao Hua was shocked. The premonition from before was born again. He asked in a low voice, "Sect leader Mo, you already knew that this Xiao was going to bring you the message of wiping out the sect?" "Yes." Mo Lianxi's figure slightly paused. She then looked back at Xiao Hua and replied with certainty, "Otherwise, why would this one leave such an order to the disciples of the sect?" "How did you know?" Xiao Hua followed, still somewhat puzzled. Mo Lianxi forced a smile and said, "Once Daoist Xiao enters Bright Palace, you will naturally know." When Xiao Hua followed Mo Lianxi into Bright Palace, he saw that it was a huge hall. The 4 walls were painted with Desolation Catalogue. These Desolation Catalogue were different from the ones Xiao Hua had seen before. Other than giants, mountains, floods, and monsters, there were also many fragments. These fragments seemed to be a whole. Many of the edges were the same. Of course, these fragments were not only scattered within a certain catalogue, but also between different catalogues. Moreover, there were obscure fluctuations emanating from within these fragments. Everywhere Xiao Hua's eyes landed on, the fragments emanated a strange and variegated brilliance, and Xiao Hua was actually able to see stars, regions, continents, and so on and so forth through these light. Xiao Hua frowned and his gaze fell on other parts of the catalogue. The things on these catalogues seemed to be engraved on them. Other than the fluctuations within the fragments, there was also the ubiquitous aura on the catalogue. This aura was different depending on what was engraved on it. If all these auras were connected together, there would be a strange covering and drowning. After looking at the catalogue around Bright Palace, Xiao Hua's gaze fell on the main hall. There were a few brocade chairs there. Currently, several young cultivators were sitting on them. When they saw Xiao Hua and Mo Lianxi enter, they all stood up and welcomed them. When everyone came closer, Mo Lianxi stopped and smiled at Xiao Hua. Daoist Xiao, these are the elders of my aroma sect. I, Chang Minute, greet Daoist Xiao. A white-clothed scholar with curved eyebrows smiled and cupped his hands. Immediately after, a blue-clothed middle-aged cultivator with a somewhat yellow face cupped his hands and said, I, Wu Hong, greet Daoist Xiao. The other was a burly man with a big waist. The beard on his face could be seen. His voice was also loud and clear. He cupped his hands and said, I, by Zhenzhong, greet Daoist Xiao. Fellow Taoists, please rise. Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand to help everyone up and said with a smile, I, Xiao Hua, greet fellow Taoists. Chapter 41-54. The four exchanged some pleasantries, and Bai Zhenzhong even asked about Xiao Hua's injuries. Xiao Hua answered everything. When Xiao Hua finished, Mo Lianxi's face tightened, and said, all right, everyone, let's take a seat. Daoist Xiao is still injured. After today's matter is arranged, Daoist Xiao will need to go into seclusion to recuperate. All right, Daoist Xiao, please. The three elders respectfully invited Xiao Hua to take a seat. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, and sat down on the guest seat. Mo Lianxi and the others sat beside him. Fellow Taoists, this Xiao has come today for the Devil Formation and the Moon God Realm's great desolate starstorm. Xiao Hua looked at everyone and said, hiss. Everyone's expression changed when they heard about the great desolate starstorm. As they sucked in a breath of cold air, they looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with fear. As expected, Mo Lianxi's expression slowly calmed down, and said indifferently, then, please tell us the details of Daoist Xiao's situation. Xiao Hua nodded, and told them about the devil race he saw outside the realm-protecting Great Formation, as well as the news brought by Yang Chong. Damn it. Mo Lianxi's face turned cold, and said angrily, this must be the doing of Yanhong Hall and Jing Feishan Sec. They want to borrow the power of the conference hall to suppress the Fortune Gate whose reputation is gradually catching up to theirs. These two sects are really shameless. Mo Lianxi's words clearly had a trace of trying to cover it up, as if he didn't know that Xiao Hua was blocked outside the ruins by the realm-protecting Great Formation. Xiao Hua looked at Mo Lianxi. He didn't believe that Mo Lianxi, the sect master of the ruins' three great sects, didn't know what happened in the conference hall. Since Mo Lianxi directly pointed out the two sects, and said it with a suspicious tone, Xiao Hua already knew that these two sects must be behind it. Xiao Hua smiled and replied, it's fine, who cares who it is? My Fortune Gate won't stay in the ruins for long, and won't compete with these two sects for fame and profit. Mo Lianxi nodded. This one also knows that Daoist Xiao and the Fortune Gate will definitely escape from this disaster. Xiao Hua's brows raised, and said curiously, Sect Master Mo seems to know a lot. It's time to explain it to this Xiao. Of course. Mo Lianxi said smiled, Daoist Xiao wait, Daoist Xiao, Daoist Xiao, Daoist Xiao, you won't be willing if I don't explain it. Then, the jade hairpin actually turned into a golden dragon. The hairpin turned into a golden dragon actually. The hairpin turned, and through turned, and through some hand seals, and through cast, ants, and cast, through Through and through cast, and through cast, and made a hand seals S hand, and then, cast the, and cast, formed, cast, the, he, the, s, Xiao. Inside the light, the female cultivator's huge figure slowly appeared, and an aura that suppressed everything in the hall instantly filled the bright palace. Around the female cultivator's soul projection, small cracks appeared in the space, and inexplicable fluctuations ran amok in these cracks. The female cultivator's face seemed to be very clear, but Xiao Hua's gaze could not see her face. Even a simple outline was empty in Xiao Hua's mind, but Xiao Hua clearly knew that this primordial spirit projection was the female cultivator. At this time, the female cultivator's voice was like thunder. Sect Master Lan Xichen of the 72nd generation greets Daoist Xiao Hua, Daoist Xiao. Seeing that the female cultivator's soul projection was actually cupping her hands in greeting, Xiao Hua was shocked. He hurriedly got up, wanting to return the greeting, but even though it was just a soul projection, the aura was heavier than a mountain. Not to mention getting up, even breathing was difficult for Xiao Hua. Daoist Xiao, there's no need to be so polite. The female cultivator's soul projection seemed to know what Xiao Hua was thinking. After greeting him, she said with a smile, I still have something to entrust to you, Daoist Xiao. I hope you won't refuse. Xiao Hua said respectfully, Senior Lan, please tell me what you need. If I can do it, I won't refuse. You must be confused right now, Daoist Xiao. It's not too late to agree after listening to me explain the ins and outs of this matter. Lan Xichen's nascent soul projection said, when I was training in the cultivation world, I obtained a jade slip that recorded the art of divination. Based on this jade slip, I cultivated some divine abilities of divination. After I cultivated to the 9th stage Dao transformation realm, I passed the position of sect master to my disciples and participated in the selection of the Moon God Palace. I left the ruins and entered the Moon God Palace. After that, my cultivation improved, and my divination techniques became even more radical. I felt a sudden impulse one day and sensed that the incense cult would face a great disaster in the future, so I hurriedly used the moon ripple pool of the Moon God Palace to perform divination. Unfortunately, I's cultivation was shallow and couldn't deduce when the incense cult would face a great disaster. I also didn't know what kind of disaster it would face. However, I saw Daoist Xiao's appearance and name in the moon ripple pool and knew that Daoist Xiao would come to the incense cult's 7 ridge mountains before the great disaster. Therefore, I took advantage of my official duties and returned to the incense sect. While rearranging the sect-protecting formation, I also set up a formation in the Bright Palace and left my primordial spirit projection, waiting for perfected Xiao's arrival. Xiao Hua had already seen the power of the Shaman King's God-connecting technique in the Million Meng Mountains, so he wasn't too surprised by the words of the former sect master of the incense cult who could enter the Moon God Palace. At this point, Lan Xichen smiled and said, by now, Daoist Xiao must have understood what I wanted to entrust to Daoist Xiao, right? Yes, it's the inheritance of the incense cult, including the 30,000 disciples, all the cultivation methods and necessary auxiliary item. No way. Xiao Hua's expression changed slightly, and he smiled bitterly. Senior Lan already divined that the incense cult would face such a great disaster, so why didn't you make plans earlier? Why didn't you take the incense cult's orthodoxy and leave the ruins? You could even send the incense cult's disciples to Heaven's equal realm, Tai Bai astral boundary, and so on before the demon race besieges the ruins, right? Lan Xichen's primordial spirit projection seemed to know that Xiao Hua would ask this question. When Xiao Hua's voice fell, the primordial spirit projection said again, this poor Daoist has already thought about what Daoist is thinking, and is also prepared to do so. However, if Daoist sees this poor Daoist's primordial spirit projection now, then all of your previous efforts will be in vain. Any thoughts of stealing from the heavens will be destroyed by the heavens. My incense cult can only wait for Daoist Xiao's arrival. Where is the current sect master of the incense cult? Inform Daoist Xiao of this matter. At this time, Mo Lianxi hurriedly opened her mouth and said, the 3208th sect master of the incense cult, Mo Lianxi, greets the founder. Then, Mo Lianxi said to Xiao Hua in a low voice, Daoist Xiao, every sect master of the incense cult received a jade slip and a message when they took over the sect master position. Inside the jade slip is naturally a portrait of Daoist Xiao, and the message is about Xiao Hua's name, as well as the preparations for the great disaster. In this preparation, other than the disciples, cultivation methods, and necessary auxiliary items, it is to send disciples outside the moon god realm to establish a branch of the incense cult. But the strange thing is, every time my incense cult establishes a sect in another realm, it will be destroyed by other sects in less than 100 years, without any exception. Therefore, after I took over the sect master position, I tried once and never sent any disciples again. After saying this, Mo Lianxi respectfully said to the primordial spirit projection, "This disciple has finished speaking." After a while, the primordial spirit projection opened its mouth again. "Mn, Daoist Xiao, after hearing this, you should already understand. Although this poor Daoist does not know if you can really save the orthodoxy of my incense cult, this poor Daoist has seen your appearance and name. This poor Daoist believes that you will play a key role in this calamity. Therefore, this poor Daoist will entrust the orthodoxy of my incense cult to you. If you agree, please stand in the center of the bright palace. I obtained a strange cultivation technique from the Moon God Palace, and it might be useful to you. I will give it to you now as an agreement. If you don't want to, then you don't have to go. I will give you the time it takes for an incense stick to burn to consider. After that, not only will my primordial spirit projection disappear, everything in the bright palace will also disappear." After hearing the primordial spirit projection's words, not only was Xiao Hua stunned, but the faces of Mo Lianxi and the others also changed greatly. Mo Lianxi of course knew about the primordial spirit projection, but he didn't know the specific situation. Of course, he also didn't know that the ending wasn't decided beforehand. If Xiao Hua didn't agree, the orthodoxy of the incense cult wouldn't be able to leave the ruins, and it might be destroyed in the Great Desolate Starburst. Moreover, even if Xiao Hua agreed, the orthodoxy of the incense cult might not necessarily be preserved, because Lan Xichen didn't know if Xiao Hua would be able to escape the disaster. Daoist Xiao. Mo Lianxi's body also couldn't move, so he begged in a low voice, "Daoist Xiao, please agree to this for Yu Mingxin's sake." At this point, Xiao Hua had already thought it through. Since Lan Xichen saw him in the divination technique, then he would definitely play a role in the disaster. Although he might not be able to escape the Great Desolate Starburst, there was a possibility that his space could exist. Therefore, Xiao Hua already somewhat understood the meaning of Lan Xichen's primordial spirit projection. However, he was a little worried. The Fortune Gate's disciples on the Shenhua continent all cultivated the nascent soul, while the incense cult's disciples cultivated the primordial spirit. These two different cultivation methods would inevitably lead to conflict, and he didn't have a good plan to prevent this from happening. This primordial spirit cultivation method was unique to the ruins, who knew if it could be used on the Dawn Rain continent or the hidden immortal continent. Even if he took away the incense cult's inheritance, would they be able to survive on the hidden immortal continent? Of course, this was a matter for the future. Since Xiao Hua had come to the incense cult to send a message, how could he stand by and do nothing? He lifted his foot and walked towards the center of the bright palace. However, just as he moved, the aura suppressed him, making it difficult for him to move an inch. Chapter 4155. Sigh. Xiao Hua bitterly smiled as he silently cursed in his heart, "Motherfucker, even at this point, they still want to test this Xiao's cultivation level. It seems like this bright palace is not only a place to preserve Lan Xichen's soul projection, but also a place to test this Xiao's strength." Immediately after, Xiao Hua's entire body's magic power was activated. Layers of lightning, like a torrent of 1,000 miles, rushed towards the soul projection's aura. Rumble. Although it couldn't be compared to a destructive force, the torrent of lightning still created a path that was several feet wide, leading straight to the center of the bright palace. Xiao Hua's figure flashed. Under the heavy pressure of this aura, he actually teleported to a large piece of bluestone in the center. Just as Xiao Hua's figure appeared on the bluestone exploded with a boom. Tens of thousands of crushed stones covered Xiao Hua's figure. Those crushed stones were also a kind of sealing formation, imprisoning the magic power in Xiao Hua's body and so on. Not good. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. However, where Xiao Hua's gaze fell, Mo Lianqi's expression was also astonished. Obviously, he also didn't know that the blue stone in the center of the bright palace had such a change. Sure enough, just as the bluestone formation was formed, the soul projection smiled and said, Daoist Xiao is indeed a man of his word. Please wait a moment, I need to borrow the hand of our sect's leader to mobilize the bright palace's formation to imbue Daoist Xiao with power, so I have no choice but to first estimate Daoist Xiao's magic power. As he spoke, the Yuan spirit projection said a few more words to Mo Lianqi. Mo Lianqi's face suddenly lit up, and her hands slowly formed a seal. A human-like Yuan spirit appeared above her head. As the Yuan spirit rippled like water, Lan Xichen's Yuan spirit projection also began to vibrate. When the two Yuan spirits' ripples came close, Lan Xichen's Yuan spirit projection turned into a ray of distorted light and fell into Mo Lianqi's Yuan spirit. Mo Lianqi's Yuan spirit appearance began to change, and in the end, she became a stunning beauty. The woman glanced at Xiao Hua, pursed her lips, and smiled. Her slender fingers made a grabbing motion, and an inexplicable ripple came from her hand. She didn't seem to be forming any seals. Wang wang. A rumbling sound came from all around the bright palace. All the star fragments that Xiao Hua saw on the desolate catalogue released a faint power of the stars and moon. They flew out from various parts of the palace and slowly gathered above Xiao Hua's head. After a few breaths of time, all the fragments disappeared, and an oval sphere appeared in the air. This sphere was filled with starlight, and within the starlight was a strange light and shadow. Rise. As the woman formed another seal, the entire bright palace began to spin. Layer after layer of desolate catalogue rushed out from the palace's walls and turned into light and shadow that fell into the oval sphere. As the light and shadow fell, the sphere seemed to become heavier and slowly fell. When the brilliance in the palace dimmed, all the desolate catalogue had fallen into the sphere, and the sphere had already fallen on top of Xiao Hua's head. This sphere was so heavy that Xiao Hua's figure was somewhat distorted. Xiao Hua's face was somewhat pale. He could truly feel the power contained in this sphere. He almost cursed Lan Xichen in his heart. How is this giving me a boost? This is the rhythm of smashing me to death. Boom. As the corners of Lan Xichen's mouth curled up into a smile, Xiao Hua only felt a sharp pain in his head. His vision turned black, and the endless desolate catalogue appeared just like in the relic world. However, this catalogue was different from the previous one. Each desolate catalogue corresponded to a star domain fragment, and when combined, they transformed into a cultivation technique or technique that was imprinted in Xiao Hua's mind. Inexplicable realms, cultivation techniques, and techniques that were difficult to comprehend were also born in Xiao Hua's mind. Xiao Hua endured the sharp pain, clenched his teeth, and persevered. He memorized all the cultivation methods and secret techniques with his heart. In the eyes of Mo Lianqi and the others, Xiao Hua's figure had already shattered, and each fragment seemed to correspond to a broken catalogue, flashing with a mysterious brilliance. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao Hua's mind suddenly became light. All the visions disappeared, and the shackles around Xiao Hua's body also disappeared. Xiao Hua's figure became light, and then he collapsed to the ground as if he had collapsed. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed. This Lan Xichen is a madman. I'm already a Mahayana cultivator, but I can't accept this secret technique. Who knows what she accidentally obtained? How am I supposed to cultivate like this? Even if this Xiao cultivates, what kind of realm can I cultivate to? How can I dare to use it? However, when Xiao Hua raised his eyes to look again, Lan Xichen's Yuan spirit projection had already left Mo Lianqi's Yuan spirit and had already turned into an extremely dim silhouette. When he looked at the entire bright palace again, it was also completely devoid of light. However, all the places where the Primeval catalogue and the Star Domain fragment had been previously were empty. Only the restrictions on the four walls of the palace remained. Daoist Xiao. Lan Xichen's voice was very weak. I can only do this. I hope Daoist Xiao will be satisfied and pass me on to your descendants. Before Lan Xichen could finish speaking, her soul projection turned into a firefly and slowly floated in the air. Even within the main hall, Countless powders also floated down. These powders carried a kind of fragrance that permeated the entire hall. Xiao Hua raised his hand and wanted to use his magic power to sweep away these powders. However, when he raised his hand, an indescribable feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. 2 lines of an unknown poem appeared in his mind: the spring silkworm's silk ends when it dies, and the wax torch turns into ashes until tears dry up. No matter how domineering and rude Lan Xichen's methods were, her kindness to the younger disciples of the incense cult was unparalleled. As a Dao sect senior, she had long surpassed the 9th stage of Dao transformation. For the sake of the survival of the younger disciples, she still treated Xiao Hua as an equal and even called herself I. This alone was enough to move Xiao Hua, who was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Weren't these powders and fragrances the result of Lan Xichen's efforts for the sake of the incense cult? Since Xiao Hua had such thoughts, Mo Lianxi and the others naturally had the same thoughts. They all raised their heads and allowed the powders to fall on them. They allowed the powders to fall on their faces and heads. The strange thing was that the shattered fireflies formed by Lan Xichen's Yuanshan projection also fell. Most of them landed on Xiao Hua's body, while a small portion landed on Mo Lianxi and the other 3. These shattered fireflies immediately merged into their bodies the moment they touched their skin. A strange feeling arose in everyone's heart. It was as if their minds and Dao realms had solidified. Moreover, when the Yuanshan projection landed on them, the powders also merged into their bodies. Rings of colorful halos overflowed from the top of everyone's heads. After a full 5 minutes, Lan Xichen's soul projection completely disappeared. The powders that filled the main hall also fell onto the bluestone floor. Only then did everyone wake up as if from a dream. Disciple thanks ancestral master. Mo Lianxi and the others were ecstatic. They all knelt on the ground and expressed their gratitude. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, was a bit confused. However, he also knew that this was Lan Xichen's good intentions, so he bowed towards the sky. After a while, Mo Lianxi and the others climbed up from the ground. They looked at the basically ruined Haoming Palace and smiled bitterly. Daoist Xiao, I'm sure you already know the ins and outs of this matter. It's not that I didn't tell you earlier, but that I didn't know at all. Xiao Hua nodded and said, Sect Master Mo, please rest assured. Since I've already promised Senior Lan, I'll definitely do it. As long as I can escape from the ruins, I'll definitely bring the orthodoxy of the incense cult out. I'll let the descendants of the incense cult spread their branches and leaves in other cultivation realms. I won't hesitate to ensure that the incense cult survives. Speaking of this, Xiao Hua hesitated and said, also, didn't Senior Lan say it? She only predicted the beginning of the robbery and also predicted my arrival. However, she didn't predict the end of the calamity. The incense cult might not necessarily be in this calamity. Although Xiao Hua didn't finish his words, Mo Lianxi also understood what he meant. He smiled and said, we're only planning for the worst. As for whether we live or die, that's the decision of the heavens. Damn it, maybe when this chaos starstorm comes, the devil race of the ruins will scatter and the crisis of the ruins will be resolved without a fight. Xiao Hua listened to Mo Lianxi's words of joy in the midst of bitterness and felt rather uncomfortable. However, he didn't know how to comfort him, so he simply didn't say anything. Daoist Xiao, this place is already abandoned. Let's go to the Flying Rainbow Palace. Mo Lianxi looked around and suggested. Xiao Hua shook his head and replied, no need. This place was personally set up by Senior Lan. I'd better settle the matter that she's worried about here. All right. Mo Lianxi didn't delay and replied. He turned his head and asked, Elder Chang. I'm sure that by now, you already understand the mission this sect master gave you when you assumed the position of elder that day, right? The white-robed scholar Chang Minute said very respectfully, this subordinate knows his mistake. This subordinate apologizes to the sect master. This subordinate doubted the sect master that day because this subordinate didn't understand the secret behind it. Ari, Chang Minute do you think this sect master likes to take on this position? Mo Lianxi sighed, since this sect master took over the incense cult, I have to rack my brains every day. How is that the life this sect master wants? Cough cough. Xiao Hua couldn't help but cough. Looking at this scholar with a bitter expression, he really felt distressed. Wasn't he also forced to duck onto a perch? He had already done something beyond his ability. Unfortunately, Mo Lianxi misunderstood Xiao Hua. He thought that Xiao Hua was reminding him not to waste time, so he hurriedly said to Chang Minute, "Are the 30,000 male and female disciples you sent to the forbidden area safe and sound?" "Yes." Chang Minute bowed. This subordinate has followed the sect master's instructions and secretly recruited 15,000 male and 15,000 female disciples from all over the ruins. All of them had excellent aptitudes and were sent to the forbidden area of our fragrant cult, where they were taught the basic cultivation methods of our sect. Good. Mo Lianxi nodded, then looked at the middle-aged cultivator with a yellow face and asked, "What about Elder Wu's task?" Chapter 4156. Reporting to Sect Master. Wu Hong also bowed and said respectfully, "Although this subordinate doesn't know why Sect Master needs all kinds of pills, spirit herbs, and other things, this subordinate has been working hard on this matter after receiving the mission. Although the amount of pills and spirit herbs hasn't reached Sect Master's requirements, it's not far off." Good. Mo Lianxi smiled and said, "We have our own arrangements, and the seniors have their own arrangements. It doesn't matter if it's a little short." Hiss. Hearing this, Wu Hong's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of a problem. After all, each generation of the fragrant religion sect master had to prepare 30,000 disciples. Each generation of disciples was different, but what about medicinal pills and spirit grasses? Those could be stored. After so many years, how many pills and spirit herbs had sect master accumulated? What about those qi refining materials, magic weapons, and other things? Thinking of this, Wu Hong couldn't help but look at Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua's expression didn't change. It was unknown if he didn't think of this, or if he wasn't moved by this amount at all. Finally, Mo Lianxi looked at the burly man, Bai Zhenzhong. Without waiting for him to speak, Bai Zhenzhong called out, "Sect Master, this subordinate has reported to Sect Master every year about what you told this subordinate to do. I've already dealt with it properly. Whatever cultivation methods, secret techniques, alchemy techniques, refining techniques, and so on, as long as this subordinate can find it, regardless of the sect, I've left it in the forbidden area." Mo Lianxi didn't say anything more. She responded and ordered, "You all go to the forbidden area together. Once this sect master and Daoist Xiao discuss some things, we'll go now." This subordinate obeys. The three bowed and left at the same time. After the three left, Mo Lianxi looked at the calm Xiao Hua and said solemnly, "Daoist Xiao, I will hand over my sect master's descendants to you. The life and death of these disciples, as well as the pills, cultivation methods, and so on, will be handed over to you. As long as sect master can survive, I will thank you on behalf of all the seniors of sect master." After she finished saying those words, Mo Lianxi actually bowed respectfully. She appeared to be very serious. How could Xiao Hua not know the meaning behind Mo Lianxi's words? He didn't immediately help Mo Lianxi up. Instead, he accepted the bow and said, "Sect Master Mo, please don't worry. Whatever this Xiao takes from the sect master today, I will hand it over to the future disciples of the incense cult. Even if it's a cultivation technique or a spirit herb, this Xiao will not stain it. Many thanks." Mo Lianxi's eyes were filled with gratitude as she continued, "However, my fragrant sect has been accumulating for who knows how many years. There are a lot of spirit herbs and pills inside. If Daoist needs them, feel free to use them. Just give them what they need." "Haha, rest assured, sect leader Mo," Xiao Hua said with a smile, "although this Xiao likes to take advantage of others, when it comes to matters concerning the life and death of a sect, or even things entrusted to me by others, I will always be cautious. Moreover, to be honest with sect chief, although our Fortune Gates Foundation can't compare to the fragrant cults, it's not that far off." Speaking of this, Xiao Hua added, "In fact, the most important thing is that this Xiao is the same as Sect Master Mo. We both don't like to be Sect Master. We both like to be free cultivators." Ha ha ha. Mo Lianxi laughed and clapped. People who like freedom can't be that bad. This one is relieved that Ancestor Lan has chosen Daoist. At the very least, Daoist can throw my fragrant cult's 30,000 disciples together and give them cultivation techniques, pills, and other things, and let them fend for themselves. You definitely won't have any evil thoughts and stain these things. Xiao Hua rolled his eyes at Mo Lianxi, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Sect Master Mo, could it be that you're keeping this Xiao here to test this Xiao's tolerance? Oh. Mo Lianxi stopped smiling and said solemnly, I naturally didn't keep Daoist Xiao here for this matter. It's because of the devil race's siege on the ruins. Xiao Hua nodded. Please speak, Sect Master Mo. Is there any other secret this Xiao doesn't know? Mo Lianxi pondered for a moment and said, the war between the ruins and the devil race has lasted for hundreds of years. The resources of the ruins have been greatly consumed, and the war situation has always been disadvantageous to the ruins. Previously, this one still had a trace of luck, feeling that evil won't prevail over good, and that our human race will definitely win in the end. However, Daoist Xiao's arrival and the divination technique of my fragrant cult's ancestor completely extinguished this trace of luck. Actually, this one has always had a few doubts about this war. Oh. Sect Master Mo, please speak. Xiao Hua asked with interest. First, the reason why the devil race is besieging our ruins. Mo Lianxi explained, there have been many discussions in the discussion hall, such as blood food, souls, and so on. However, until today, there hasn't been a clear conclusion. Xiao Hua interrupted, This one feels that the devil race might be searching for something in the ruins. Searching for what? What does our ruins have that's worth the devil race making such a big fuss over? My fragrant cult has been in the ruins for who knows how many years, and never knew that there's something in the ruins that other places don't have. This. Xiao Hua was at a loss for words. Of course, the secrets of the Shundao sect were not suitable for him to speak of. Moreover, he didn't have any evidence. Second, why did the devil race encircle our ruins so tightly? Even the transmission channels in the void are completely cut off. Mo Lianxi said through gritted teeth, if you say that there are no cultivators in our ruins to provide support, this one won't believe it even if you beat me to death. Xiao Hua couldn't answer this question, but this question had been raised by the Shundao sect's Yun Che before, so Xiao Hua had some ideas in his heart. However, before Xiao Hua could speak, Mo Lianxi continued, this one didn't find any clues before, but since Zhong Jing of the Hong Hall and Fei Cheng of the Jing Feishan sect came to find trouble with the Fortune Gate at such a crucial time, then I think they must be hiding something. Is there a third one? Xiao Hua asked with interest. Mo Lianxi smiled, in the past, there was a third one, but now there's no third one. Why? Xiao Hua asked curiously. Previously, I was wondering how the Devil Emperor of the Devil Clan could avoid my guardian formation of the ruins and enter the ruins so easily. However, since you've already seen the Devil formation and can enter and leave the guardian formation freely, my question is no longer a problem. Xiao Hua smiled and said, actually, this Xiao feels that Sect Master Mo's second question shouldn't exist either. Ah! Oh! Mo Lianxi was stunned for a moment before a strange light flashed through her eyes. She clapped her hands and said, Daoist Master is right. If that demonic formation has a demonic spirit, then I'm sure it will be able to detect the teleportation channel in the void after inspecting the guardian formation of the ruin. I didn't think that the Mayfly race's devilish sovereign would possess such an ability, but with the devilish formation's devilish spirit, he should be able to do so. However, Mo Lianxi changed the topic. Even so, Zhong Jing of Yanghong Palace and Fei Cheng of Jing Feishan made such a move at this critical moment. He deserves to die. Haha, this is what sect leader Mo wants to do. This Xiao is only responsible for escaping from the ruins. Xiao Hua replied with a smile. This Xiao doesn't care about anything else. Hehe, that's right. Mo Lianxi saw that she couldn't get anything from Xiao Hua and chuckled. Daoist Master, please come with this one. 30,000 people are indeed a lot, and my incense cult doesn't have a spatial divine artifact to hold them for now. I heard that Daoist Master Xiao has a fake Kunlun mirror that should be able to hold 30,000 disciples, right? Since Senior Lan has already calculated it, sect leader Mo doesn't need to worry, right? Xiao Hua replied with a smile that wasn't a smile. Half a day later, Xiao Hua bid farewell to Mo Lianxi in the air above the Seven Ridge Mountains. In order not to attract the attention of others, Chang Minute, Wu Hong, and Bai Jianzhong didn't send him off. Xiao Hua only spoke a few words to Mo Lianxi before flying away. It looked like a simple visit. However, after flying for a while, Xiao Hua's escape light slowed down again. He frowned slightly and thought to himself, Mo Lianxi is right. This Xiao has feelings for Yu Mingxian, but since the ruins are about to be destroyed, why don't this Xiao take her away? Anyway, bringing 30,000 disciples is the same as bringing her along, it doesn't make much difference. Moreover, if I bring Yu Mingxian, this incense cult will have a leader who has seen the dangers of the world. She will be useful for the future development of the incense cult. Although the 30,000 disciples in the Forbidden Grounds have the embryonic form of the incense cult, these disciples have grown up in the Forbidden Grounds and have never come out to train. They might lose themselves in the hidden immortal continent. Ayo. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua suddenly froze and couldn't help but exclaim, that's right, every sect leader of the incense cult has to nurture 30,000 disciples. Moreover, the matters of the Forbidden Grounds can't be leaked. Then, where did the 30,000 disciples of the previous generation go? Sigh, forget it. Why should this Xiao think so much? The more Xiao Hua thought, the more depressed he became. He smiled bitterly, Yu Mingxian's matter is easy. She's just one person. When this Xiao leaves, I'll just take her with me. It's not good to talk too much now. The fragrant religion's accumulation over thousands of generations was extremely rich. Xiao Hua originally wanted to organize and see what he needed and make a copy. As for the spiritual herbs and other things, he would choose and plant them according to his needs. But now, his impression of the fragrant religion was very bad. He simply ordered Xiao Guo to plant all kinds of spiritual herbs in the space and study all the pill recipes. In any case, what he could use and what he couldn't use, he would leave them behind. Xiao Hua flew for a while and released his divine sense. He found the nearest transportation array and his figure landed. The transportation array in the ruins was very complete. There was no need to fly to the soaring Dragon Mountain range. He only needed to use the transportation array to reach the soaring Dragon Mountain range. This was definitely good news for Xiao Hua, who had no sense of direction. After arriving at the transportation array closest to the soaring Dragon Mountain range, Xiao Hua was just about to ask about the direction of the soaring Dragon Mountain range when he saw several Dao sect cultivators who flew out before him. When they saw him, their expressions changed and they hurriedly tried to fly away. Xiao Hua frowned as if he thought of something. With a wave of his sleeve, he sealed the area around him. No matter how those cultivators tried, they couldn't fly even half a step. Chapter 4157. Mercy, Daoist Xiao, Mercy. We just came to take a look, we don't have any other intentions. Seeing that they couldn't escape, all of them turned around and begged for mercy with ashen faces. Xiao Hua looked at them coldly and asked, what do you mean by other intentions? I. The cultivators stammered, not daring to answer. Speak. Xiao Hua snapped, if you don't speak, this old man will kill all of you right now. Yes. The cultivator at the front was very clever and hurriedly answered. Junior and the others heard that Senior Xiao has the Devil Race's cultivation method, and is a Devil Race's spy. What Daoist Xiao said earlier about the Devil Emperor leading the Devil Race to exterminate the 10 sects in the southwest border was just a pretense to lure the cultivators from the ruins to help and exterminate them. In fact, the truth of this matter is, Daoist Xiao is the Devil Emperor. Senior and some devil monarchs put on a good show to deceive the White Cloud Monastery and other sects in the southwest border. First, you let the devil monarchs lead the devil race to besiege them, and then you easily rescued those sects. Then, you replaced the 8 sects' intact protective formation with a flawed formation, and even took the opportunity to take a lot of benefits from the White Cloud Monastery and other sect. Xiao Hua was originally angry, but when he heard this, a smile appeared on his face. Unfortunately, his smile in the eyes of everyone was tantamount to an order to kill. That cultivator was so scared that he didn't dare to say anything. What else? Xiao Hua stopped smiling and said coldly, if you want to live, tell this old man everything. Also, because the snow-chopping sect and the Eternal Peace Mountain didn't listen to the Fortune Gate's arrangements and replaced the protective formation, they were exterminated by the Fortune Gate. Not a single disciple survived. After that cultivator finished, he trembled and said, "Junior and the others just came to watch the show. We don't have any other intentions. You want to take advantage of the situation, don't you?" Xiao Hua asked coldly. Yes. Seeing that he was forced into a dead end, the cultivator simply nodded and admitted, "Junior knows that there are only a few 100,000 Fortune Gate disciples, and they have profited a lot from the southwest border, so I wanted to see if I could get lucky." Heh. Xiao Hua chuckled coldly as he looked at the pale-faced cultivators, who looked as if they had just lost their parents. Inwardly, he was filled with disdain. The ruins were the upper world, and the cultivators here were much more talented than those in the 3 continents. However, when it came to temperament, they weren't that strong. The so-called human nature, be it immortals, mortals, or the great desolate realm, as long as one was a human, they were all the same. Moreover, judging from the current situation, although the Fortune Gate's disciples had made a name for themselves in the southwest border, and Daoist Xiao's name was like the sun at midday, this kind of charitable act had also become a thorn in the eyes of certain sects and cultivators, affecting the benefits of certain forces. His Fortune Gate had no foundation in the ruins, and this kind of conflict would erupt sooner or later. Him revealing the demon race's cultivation method was just a trigger. In fact, those forces might have seen the devil spirit Xiao Hua's devil cultivation method long ago, but they didn't have the chance. Now that they saw him injured by the Devil Emperor, they decided to launch an attack together. At this point, this Xiao feels that Yun Che and Mo Lianxi's thoughts are not without reason. Xiao Hua sighed in his heart, if it wasn't the demon race's spy, then it must be a short-sighted person who only cares about what's in front of him. Otherwise, why would he cut off his own arm? Oh, of course, maybe this Xiao's Fortune Gate's several 100,000 disciples can't see those people in their eyes, and they don't care about this. If that's the case, that's the best. Xiao Hua was secretly delighted. This ruins is a mess. The demon race used the devil spirit's devil formation to besiege us, and then there's the great desolate starstorm that destroyed the starfield. This Xiao doesn't even know how to escape. Who cares about the life and death of the ruins? Forget it, let's stop. Sometimes, it's not easy to be a good person. Xiao Hua's expression changed several times, and the group of cultivators didn't dare to speak. In the end, Xiao Hua ordered, "Take this old man to the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range." Senior. The group of cultivators begged again. Junior was just momentarily blinded by greed. "Shut up, are you going or not?" Xiao Hua said decisively, "If you don't go, this old man will kill all of you right now." Yes. How could the group of cultivators dare to say anything else? They urged their magic power to rush towards the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range, and along the way, every cultivator who saw Xiao Hua scattered, not daring to fly forward. Seeing more and more cultivators, Xiao Hua's mood became colder and colder. However, when he saw the situation near the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range with his divine sense, the anger that he had been holding back burned again. The sky several thousand li around the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range was filled with cultivators. Half of these cultivators were dressed neatly, and they were divided into 8 teams that surrounded the mountain range. In the gaps between the 8 teams, the other half of cultivators were filling in. These cultivators were either in groups of 3 or 5, or in groups of 5 or 6. Although they weren't as strict as the 8 teams, they seemed to have their own division of labor. They were constantly watching the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range to prevent the Fortune Gate's disciples from escaping. As for the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range surrounded by cultivators, the 2 lightning boats were still floating in the air. At this time, the lightning boat's brilliance had already dimmed. Damn it! Xiao Hua cursed, and the pressure around his body was released uncontrollably along with his divine sense. A hurricane appeared in the surrounding 100 li, and this hurricane blew up the mountain rocks and swept up the rivers. Mixed with Xiao Hua's anger, it rushed towards the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range 10,000 li away. Xiao Hua released his Grand Ascension stage pressure, and the surrounding Dao Gate's disciples had already been suppressed to the point that their bones turned soft and their tendons numb. One by one, Their bodies trembled and fell from the sky. As for whether they lived or died, how could Xiao Hua care? An afterimage flashed past, and Xiao Hua disregarded his injuries and teleported towards the soaring dragon mountain range. Woo woo. When Xiao Hua landed near the soaring dragon mountain range, his pressure and divine sense had already condensed into a hurricane that was 1,000 li in size. Within the hurricane were countless mountain rocks, and they smashed towards the troops surrounding the soaring dragon mountain range. Xiao Hua's pressure was like a dragon, and it completely covered the surrounding 1,000 li. About 20% of the low-level cultivators were unable to use their magic power, and they involuntarily fell from the sky. The remaining 30% of the cultivators clenched their teeth and used their magic treasures to resist, but under the attack of the mountain-like divine sense, these cultivators also fell like dumplings. Daoist Master Xiao, please wait. Seeing that half of the disciples had already been defeated before Xiao Hua could make a move, several void refinement stage cultivators hastily flew out from various places, and used all kinds of magic treasures in their hands to block Xiao Hua's divine sense. Xiao Hua slowly withdrew his pressure and divine sense, and a lot of rocks, dead branches, and water fell from the sky, hitting the bodies of these cultivators. These cultivators didn't resist, and let the debris hit their protective light. What? You want to stop this old man from returning to the soaring dragon mountain range? Xiao Hua slightly narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. Junior is Huang Li of the Yanghong Hall, and has come under the orders of the Assembly Hall, to investigate the movements of the Fortune Gate's disciple. That cultivator respectfully said, Junior and the others will not care about the entry and exit of the Fortune Gate's disciples. If Senior wants to return to the soaring dragon mountain range, Junior naturally wouldn't dare to stop you. However, Junior asks for Senior's understanding. Junior is just following orders, please don't make things too difficult for Junior. Moreover, Junior has already reported this matter to the Fortune Gate's senior son, and he didn't have any objections. Good. Xiao Hua slightly nodded, since you all know etiquette, this old man will give you 3 words. Senior, please speak. Huang Li's heart relaxed, and he hurriedly replied. Xiao Hua indifferently said, the first 2 words are get out of my way. Yes. Huang Li hurriedly dodged to the side. Xiao Hua's figure swayed, and he flew past Huang Li's side, and said again, the last word is. Scram. Yes. Huang Li casually agreed, but he was dumbfounded as he watched Xiao Hua's disappearing figure. He bit his lips, and no one knew what he was thinking. Sun Jian and the others were already aware of Xiao Hua's return, and all of them flew into the air to welcome him. Xiao Hua saw that all his disciples were safe and sound, and there was even a smile on his face. His heart finally relaxed, and he waved his hand to let his disciples rest, while he led Sun Jian and several of his clones to the bamboo forest at the back of the mountain. General Sun. Xiao Hua asked, what's the situation of the Snow/Gates battle? Reporting to Dao Master, Sun Jian bowed and said, the Snow/Gate situation is different from the White Cloud Monastery. Without waiting for Sun Jian to finish, Xiao Hua raised his hand and said, this old man doesn't want to know the details of the Snow/Gate situation, this old man only wants to know the result, and the casualties of my Fortune Gate. Sun Jian understood Xiao Hua's mood, and said after pondering for a moment, not a single Snow/Gate's disciple survive. The Snow/Gate's orthodoxy and everything were taken by my Fortune Gate's disciples into their spatial rings. My Fortune Gate's disciples lost 3,000 in this battle. Why are there so many? Xiao Hua frowned and said in displeasure. Sun Jian hurriedly bowed, this subordinate is incompetent. There's no need to blame General Sun. Scholarly cultivator Xiao Hua said with a smile, the Snow/Gate is several times bigger than the Eternal Peace Mountain, and they are also very strange. Moreover, the devil race that controls the Snow/Gate is not only the zombie race, but also a kind of devil race that is covered in devil armor. Their skin is very tough and their flesh is very hard to kill. Moreover, these 3,000 disciples who died had just come out from the Kunlun Mirror, and didn't go through too many bloody battles. General Sun, please stand up. Xiao Hua's expression became slightly better as he helped Sun Jian up and said, this old man is not blaming General, this old man just feels that the Grand Meeting Hall is too much. He. Sun Jian stood up and laughed, This son had already thought of this ending when I took over the 2 lightning boats. With such a strong appearance, it will definitely affect the distribution of forces in the ruins. Some people in the Grand Meeting Hall are using Master Xiao's cultivation techniques to talk about things, and sending out low-level disciples to scout the area. It's nothing. If this son enters the Grand Meeting Hall again, then, that will be the start of the real battle between dragons and tigers. TSK, who would want a seat in the Grand Meeting Hall? Xiao Hua sneered, if it weren't for the fact that the devil race in the ruins is really abominable, and we need to escape from the ruins, who would care about the ruins business? Chapter 4158. So, Sun Jian persuaded, since Master Xiao's intention is to save people, he doesn't care about fame or power. Just let them do as they please. Why make things difficult for these low-level disciples? Moreover, with them guarding the soaring dragon mountain range, it saves my fortune gate the trouble of sending out disciples. Don't care about this. Xiao Hua ordered, pass down the order. In 2 hours, my fortune gate's disciples will enter the lightning boat. We will leave the soaring dragon mountain range. We can't leave a single hair to them. We can leave. Sun Jian's eyes lit up as he asked in pleasant surprise. How could it be so simple? Xiao Hua shook his head. This old man doesn't like these lackeys in the hall of discussion. Since they are willing to follow, then let them follow. This old man also wants to take this opportunity to explore the ruins. This subordinate feels that it's better to stay still than to take action. Sun Jian still wanted to say something, but Xiao Hua smiled and said, actually, there are some reasons that this old man cannot tell you for the time being. Just do as I say. All right. Sun Jian helplessly bowed and flew away. Fellow Taoists. Xiao Hua looked at his several avatars and said, you all have worked hard. We dare not. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua and the others cupped their hands and answered. Come back and cultivate first. Xiao Hua pondered for a moment and said, also, help this old man sort out the cultivation techniques and see what they are used for. Xiao Hua divided the fragrance religion's inheritance into several parts and gave them to his avatars. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua and the others took the spatial rings and entered Xiao Hua's body. Phoenix Physique Xiao Hua entered Xiao Hua's body and immediately used a secret technique to repair his body. Confucian Xiao Hua entered Xiao Hua's body and circulated his true qi to extinguish the devil flames. As for Devil Spirit Xiao Hua, he opened his mouth and swallowed the devil flames and devil qi that were difficult to extinguish into his abdomen to temper himself. Each avatar performed their own duties, leaving only Buddha Subhuti standing there. He did not return to his Niwan palace. Namo Metria Buddha. Buddha Subhuti chanted and put his palms together. Did Tan you leave the soaring dragon mountain range for the countless wandering souls in the ruins? What do you think? Xiao Hua asked with a faint smile. This penniless monk has already tried it in the Snow/Gate. This penniless monk's Buddhist mantra is unable to send those pitiful wandering souls into the cycle of reincarnation. This must be because the demonic array has sealed the gate of life and death that leads to the Yellow Springs. They want to use these wandering souls to refine demonic artifact. Buddha Bodhi replied, if Tanyu has the heart, he can collect these wandering souls. On one hand, he can gather merit, and on the other hand, he can take drastic measures to deal with the devil race. That's right. Xiao Hua nodded. I left the soaring dragon mountain range because of this. Now that the ruins are filled with wandering souls, sooner or later, they will bring a disaster to the ruins. Why don't we take advantage of them now? Of course, I could have gone by myself. The reason why I dragged the Fortune Gate's disciples and the other fellow Taoists along was because the Grand Meeting Hall's attention was focused on the soaring dragon mountain range. This would be disadvantageous to fellow Daoist Greenrobe who was constructing the transmission array. This teleportation formation is the key to leaving the ruins. We can't be careless. Can't Tan you rely on the soul cultivator's technique to teleport? Buddha Bodhi was a little perplexed. Why is there a need to build a teleportation array? This fellow Daoist doesn't understand. Xiao Hua smiled and said, the ruins is the upper realm, and the great snow mountain of the hidden immortal mainland is the lower realm. Previously, we were lucky enough to detect the great snow mountain's spiritual sense mark in the time fragment of the heavenly prison. Now, it's even more difficult to cross realms to find the spiritual sense mark. If there wasn't a transmission array, I wouldn't dare to believe it. But, even if there is a transmission array, it's not possible to construct a transmission array that crosses two realms, right? Buddha Bodhi shook his head and said, otherwise, wouldn't the three continents be filled with immortal worlds cultivators and long-used dragon clan? Ari. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, how could I not know about this? However, since the transmission array from the heavenly prison to the Great Snow Mountain passes through the ruins, then when we leave the ruins and return to the Great Snow Mountain, don't we also need to use the transmission array? As long as we can find the spiritual sense mark of the Great Snow Mountain, I have confidence that I can return to the Great Snow Mountain. At this point, Xiao Hua smiled again and said, the ruins is the upper realm, and even the devil race has the ability to seal the gate of life and death. The transmission array that we construct may not be unable to directly connect the three continents, right? That's impossible. Buddha Bodhi didn't feel that Xiao Hua's thinking was correct, and explained, if Tanyu can construct a transmission array from the ruins to the three continents, then wouldn't Tanyu be able to use this transmission array to travel between the three continents and the ruins as he pleases? This is the upper realm, and although the cultivation method is different, the heaven and earth origin energy here is much denser than the three continents. Cultivating here, not to mention Tanyu, even Fortune Gate's disciples are ordinary cultivators, and that so-called Great Desolate Starstorm, how could it destroy the ruins? Xiao Hua sighed. What Buddha Bodhi could think of, he could naturally think of as well. Every word that Buddha Bodhi said was true, the ruins might be an existence that surpassed the immortal world, so how could he rely on a transmission array to travel between two realms? These two realms were different from the Moon God realm and Tai Bai Star realm, they might be the two realms of the mortal world and the immortal world. At this time, Xiao Hua could only reply, what immortal friend said is true. But now that we are facing the siege of the devil race, facing the great desolate starstorm, other than constructing a transmission array to escape, what other methods do we have? No. Buddha Bodhi was straightforward, this poor monk is just saying, whether to do it or not is up to Tanyu. This poor monk will take his leave. After saying that, Buddha Bodhi flew into his Niwan palace. Damn it, since you are just saying, then don't say any more. Xiao Hua scolded in annoyance. This Xiao's originally unhappy mood is even worse now. Then, Xiao Hua summoned the green-robed Xiao Hua over, and after a few words of discussion, he made a copy of the incense cult's method of constructing the transmission array for him, and then had the green-robed Xiao Hua speed up the construction. Only then did he let the green-robed Xiao Hua return to the Great Formation. After doing all this, Xiao Hua flew into the air, waved his hand, and put away the formation. Then, he waved his sleeves, and several sword lights fell on the mountain peak. Rumble. With a loud bang, the entire mountain peak was destroyed by Xiao Hua, and the layers of green bamboo and the previous memories disappeared. Xiao Hua looked at the battle teams around him, and completely ignored them, and flew to the two thunderboats that were ready to set off. Xiao Hua landed on the lightning boat. His divine sense swept over the soaring Dragon Mountain range, and he saw that the palaces and cultivation caves that had been built earlier were all destroyed by the Fortune Gate's disciples. They had really done as Xiao Hua had said, not leaving a single hair behind. Xiao Hua was very satisfied, and asked loudly, General Sun, is everything ready? Reporting to the Reverend, everything is ready. Sun Jian bowed and answered. All right. Xiao Hua nodded. Just as he was about to give the order, his divine perception suddenly swept over and he actually saw several disciples dressed in White Cloud Monastery's Daoist robes. Xiao Hua's expression froze, and he said with some surprise, General Sun, why are the disciples of White Cloud Monastery also here? Reverend. Sun Jian's expression did not change as he answered, not only the White Cloud Monastery's disciples, other than the Eternal Peace Mountain and Snow Chopper Gate, all the other sects' disciples have come. There are even 2 sects that have begun to dismantle their sects' defensive formations. Also, a portion of the Fortune Gate's disciples that were sent by the Grand Meeting Hall to assist our Fortune Gate, are staying here to monitor our Fortune Gate's disciples' movements. En. Xiao Hua nodded coldly, and said, the help of self-sacrifice is far from comparable to bewitchment. My sons, follow this old man and kill. Kill. Hearing Xiao Hua's order, Sun Jian was stunned. Xiao Hua had never issued orders to the Fortune Gate's disciples. This was the first time. However, hearing Xiao Hua's order, Sun Jian was alarmed. He understood that there were some people with ulterior motives in the Grand Meeting Hall who had sent low-level disciples to surround the Fortune Gate's disciples. They wanted to see the scene of the Fortune Gate's disciples killing indiscriminately. As long as the Fortune Gate's disciples saw blood, all their previous efforts would be wasted. Teacher Xiao. Sun Jian hastily sent a voice transmission to Xiao Hua, wanting to stop him. However, as soon as he spoke, he immediately shut his mouth, because Xiao Hua's cultivation level was becoming increasingly unfathomable. In the blink of an eye, 2 thick bolts of lightning appeared on the 2 thunderbolts. As Xiao Hua pushed with both hands, the bolts of lightning exploded like a mountain torrent, majestically rushing towards one direction. My sons, block. The lightning bolts were heading towards a group of people who were besieged. The leader of the group was already trembling with fear when he saw the unparalleled momentum of the lightning bolts. However, he did not dare to dodge and could only brace himself to issue orders. The tens of thousands of cultivators activated their magic treasures in an attempt to block the lightning bolts. Rumble. Amidst a series of rumbling sounds, all the cultivators' magic treasures were destroyed by the lightning bolts. The cultivators were also injured by the lightning bolts. Their bodies fell to the ground, and the entire group collapsed in an instant. Wang wang. At the same time as the group collapsed, the 2 lightning boats emitted rumbling sounds. The lightning boats' huge shadows carried a shocking momentum as they slowly rolled over the tens of thousands of cultivators' heads. Flashing lightning bolts, the lightning boat's speed became faster and faster. Quickly report to the Grand Meeting Hall. The Fortune Gate's disciples have finally made their move. Amidst the chaotic voices, some of the commanders anxiously ordered. While some of the other commanders stared blankly in the direction of the 2 lightning boats, bewildered. Why are the Fortune Gate's disciples returning to the snow-chopping gate? Didn't they just return from the snow-chopping gate? However, doubts were just doubts. None of the commanders dared to be negligent. While reporting to the Grand Meeting Hall, they reorganized their teams and released their flying boats, following behind the Fortune Gate's disciples. After flying for several days, Huang Li and the other cultivators were surprised again. They were well aware of the lightning boat's speed, but at this time, the lightning boats were neither fast nor slow, as if they were waiting for them to catch up. Even after arriving at the snow-chopping gate, the lightning boats did not stop at all. They turned around and flew in the direction of the Water Cloud sect. The Water Cloud sect's disciples were naturally scared out of their wits when they saw this. Because the Water Cloud sect was one of the sects that had dismantled the capital star formation, they thought that the Fortune Gate's disciples were going to bring bad luck to the Water Cloud sect. But what was equally strange was that the Fortune Gate's disciples only circled the Water Cloud sect a few times. Just like the snow-chopping gate, they did not pay attention to the Water Cloud sect's disciples' vigilance at all and calmly flew to other sects. Chapter 4159. After spending several months circling the southwest border of the ruins, the 2 lightning boats once again headed north, heading towards the northwest. This time, the cultivators in the meeting hall and the disciples following them were completely dumbfounded. Wasn't this the rhythm of a sightseeing tour? Weren't there supposed to be attacks and spies? Where did all of that go? Of course, in these few months, the devil race did not give up on attacking the ruins. The all-pervasive devil formation could still find loopholes in the Great Barrier Formation, sending devil kings and devil monarchs into the ruins through the Devil Chi passageway. However, facing the devil race army, the Fortune Gate disciples no longer charged forward like before. Instead, they feinted and lured the devil army over, borrowing the lightning boat's power to escape early. In the eyes of the devil race, the lightning boats had already become a banner. Many devil race experts who had suffered greatly at the hands of the Fortune Gate had already spread the lightning boat's power. When the devil race saw that the lightning boats had been defeated without a fight, they rejoiced. Naturally, they would not chase after the lightning boats. Thus, they grabbed the various forces following the Fortune Gate disciples and killed them. Most of these forces were low-level disciples. How could they be a match for the devil race? Each of them cried for their parents as they fled on their magic tools and flying boats, not bothering to find trouble with the Fortune Gate disciples. Thus, after a few times like this, other than a few cultivators who had received strict orders from the meeting hall to follow the lightning boats from afar, there were no more large groups of disciples following the lightning boats. Unfortunately, these cultivators only stayed for a little over 10 days before they were defeated. This was because the lightning boats no longer looked like they were going on a sightseeing tour. They sped up, shuttling through the ruins like lightning. This time, these cultivators were even more dumbfounded. They really did not understand what the Fortune Gate disciples were doing. Were they exploring the ruins' terrain? Were they exploring the ruins' secrets? Or were they looking for something? In short, relying on their flying techniques and flying boats, they could not catch up with the lightning boats. They could only give up on following closely and change their strategy, using the ruins' transmission arrays to follow the lightning boats. Fortunately, the lightning boats did not deliberately hide their tracks. Relying on their understanding of the ruins, these cultivators could always see the lightning boats leaving after exiting some transmission arrays. This went on for over 10 years. Not to mention the cultivators who were tailing them, even the conference hall was puzzled. The thunderboat was like a comb, combing through the entire ruins at an extremely fast speed. Although there were many places that the thunderboat had not been to, the thunderboat had passed by most of them. Moreover, as the lightning boat sped up, the number of Fortune Gate disciples gradually decreased. At some point, the two lightning boats had merged into one, and only a few hundred disciples remained on the lightning boat. Over the past decade or so, the battle between the demon race and the human race was also in a stalemate. Apart from the various small-scale battles, the previous action of wanting to exterminate a sect at the slightest provocation was almost non-existent. Even the 20 demon emperors that had appeared frequently previously would occasionally appear. They would kill a few Dao transformation cultivators before disappearing again. This was a rare scene. Thus, the conference hall of the ruins began to confirm one thing, and that was, the number of demon emperors besieging the ruins was not as many as they had imagined. The 20 demon emperors were just a cover. The real number was probably 3, or perhaps 5, and definitely not more. Because after Xiao Hua came to the ruins, Daoist Xiao and his fellow disciples had fought a total of 3 demon emperors after coming to the ruins. At the same time, they had also injured 3 demon emperors. These 10 years were the time for the 3 demon emperors to recover from their injuries. Since they knew that there were only 3 demon emperors besieging the ruins, the conference hall's ambition gradually rose, and they began to plan for a counterattack. Waves of battles were stirred up one after another outside the realm-protecting Grand Formation. Unfortunately, things did not always go according to people's wishes. The conference hall wanted to tear a hole in the Devil Array, but the Devil Array was strange. The demon emperors were also guarding the Devil Array. Although they could not really fight, they could still block the conference hall's attacks with the help of the Devil Array, causing the conference hall's battle to be fruitless. While the conference hall was helpless, some cultivators thought of Xiao Hua. However, while the conference hall was sure of one thing, they were also confused about another. What was Xiao Hua doing in the ruins with the Fortune Gate's disciples? Perhaps the Shundao sect's Yun Che had some understanding in his heart, but at this time, he no longer dared to mention the agreement between him and Xiao Hua, and even more so, he did not dare to mention the Shundao sect's purpose in coming to the ruin. Of course, Yun Che did not have any hope for Xiao Hua's fleeting search. The Shundao sect had been in the ruins for who knew how many years, but they had not found it, so how could Xiao Hua find it so easily? Time passed by as the lightning boat shuttled back and forth. Everything was so peaceful that it made people forget that the devil race was besieging the ruins. One day, the lightning boat flew over a mountain range and suddenly stopped. Xiao Hua flew out of the lightning boat and activated the Kunlun mirror in his hand, putting the lightning boat into his space. He then sat cross-legged on the mountain peak. Only then did the group of cultivators realize that this mountain peak was the so-called Soaring Dragon Mountain range. Xiao Hua's starting point began and ended here. In the beginning, Xiao Hua had brought over 100,000 Fortune Gates disciples, and when it ended, Xiao Hua had put all of them into his space divine tool. Only now did some cultivators realize that Xiao Hua was merely a cultivator from the outside world. The battle in the ruins had nothing to do with him, and the Fortune Gate's disciples were only Xiao Hua's own disciples. They would not make any more sacrifices for the ruins. When they realized this, many sensitive cultivators felt a trace of nervousness on the eve of a great battle. After all, Xiao Hua had stopped his search and put all of his disciples away. To a large extent, it meant that his injuries had healed. Xiao Hua's injuries had healed, but what about the three Devil Emperor's injuries? The conference hall began to have a headache. In the past 10 years, the conference hall had always been in a state of attack. They had gathered the elites of various sects in the ruins around the Great Barrier Formation. Their plan was that even if they could not force the Devil race to retreat, they would tear the Great Barrier Formation apart and spread the news of the ruins being besieged. However, until now, there had been no results. Seeing that Xiao Hua's injuries had healed, they knew that they did not have much time left. The three Devil Emperors would definitely counterattack. The ruins was already in a life-and-death situation. As for the news of the great desolate starstorm brought by the Misty School's Yang Chong, it was simply concealed by the conference hall. Other than a few people who knew about it, ordinary cultivators did not know about it at all. Of course, this had nothing to do with Xiao Hua. He sat down cross-legged, and a moment later, the green-robed Xiao Hua had quietly returned. Fellow Daoist. Seeing the green-robed Xiao Hua's complacent appearance, Xiao Hua smiled and asked, "Has the transmission array been built?" Of course. The green-robed Xiao Hua took care of it. The green-robed Xiao Hua replied with a smile, "I comprehended the Dao Sect's transmission array, the Confucian cultivators going southway north technique, as well as the incense cult's world-crossing teleportation array. Only then did I build this transmission array. I guarantee that as long as fellow Daoist finds the Great Snow Mountain's spiritual sense mark and uses it to activate the going southway north technique, you will definitely be able to build a complete transmission channel and send us back to the Western Paradise. Fellow Daoist, you have worked hard." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and bowed. Being able to return to the Western Paradise is all thanks to fellow Daoist. No need to thank me, no need to thank me. The green-robed Xiao Hua was unable to close his mouth as he said, "Fellow Daoist is I am also a fellow Daoist, there is no need to thank me." In addition, did fellow Daoist use the Grand Universe Shifting Token to find the location of the Black Wind Ridge's Great Formation? Xiao Hua asked again. The green-robed Xiao Hua shook his head and said, "Although the Grand Universe Shifting Token recorded the location of the Black Wind Ridge transmission array, this item cannot be used in the ruins. I am unable to use this item to find the location of the Black Wind Ridge. Since that is the case, we will rely on the Soul Cultivator's South Polar North method. Fellow Daoist, please return to the space to cultivate." Xiao Hua released his consciousness and wrapped the green-robed Xiao Hua as he said, "I obtained a lot of good things from the incense cult, I really want to hand them over to you to handle." The green-robed Xiao Hua's eyes lit up as his saliva almost flowed out. He licked his lips and probed, magic treasure? Elixirs? Cultivation technique? Crystals? The 3 fingers that he stretched out were still slightly rubbing together, making him look exactly like a miser. "That's right." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Didn't I give fellow Daoist some cultivation techniques to comprehend previously? There are still quite a few cultivation techniques together with them. In addition, the founder of the incense cult also left behind some good things for I previously. I also gave you a little bit of this cultivation technique, but in order to not disturb you from setting up the formation, I didn't give you all of it. Now, you can properly comprehend it." "Good." The green-robed Xiao Hua laughed heartily. His figure followed Xiao Hua's consciousness into the space. After seeing the green-robed Xiao Hua, the latter's comprehension had already been transmitted to Xiao Hua's mind. The cultivation technique of the founder of the incense cult, Land Sichin, was very strange to the cultivators of the ruins, but to Xiao Hua, it was very familiar. It was really, as Land Sichin said, a kind of pleasant surprise. This cultivation technique was the cultivation technique of the immortals of the immortal world. The content was extensive and profound, far more vast than the cultivation techniques of the Dawn Rain continent that Xiao Hua had seen. What made Xiao Hua especially shocked was that this cultivation technique actually also had the Crimson Infant technique, and the content was even more than the Crimson Infant technique. Thus, Xiao Hua couldn't help but suspect Do Shan Jun's identity. The cultivation technique of the immortal world naturally required immortal qi. This was unimaginable in the 3 continents, but it was easy in the ruins. Of course, Xiao Hua's current cultivation hadn't reached that level yet, so he could only let his numerous doppelgangers find the cultivation technique that they could cultivate and comprehend it first. Even if Xiao Hua had 10 doppelgangers and each of them could find the cultivation technique that they needed to comprehend, the cultivation technique that Xiao Hua could understand was only a drop in the ocean compared to the cultivation system of the immortal world. There were indeed many more secret techniques that made Xiao Hua envious. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be greedy and only allowed his doppelgangers to cultivate the part that they could understand. He couldn't even take a look at the rest of the cultivation technique. Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the mountain peak, his cold eyes sweeping across several Dao cultivators in the distance. Then, he formed a seal with both hands. Layers of light and shadow emerged from the seal, wrapping Xiao Hua himself. Then, countless heaven and earth origin qi rushed in from all directions within several thousand li rainbow-colored pearls condensed on the mountain peak. In the air, it was only a moment. Not to mention the naked eye couldn't see Xiao Hua, even the divine sense of the group of cultivators couldn't pass through the illusion and hurricane. Chapter 4160. Moreover, the illusions and rings of light were very strange. As long as a cultivator's divine sense fell into it, they would see countless small worlds. And in these small worlds, there were mortals who looked exactly like cultivators. They would give birth to many stories in these small worlds. These stories deeply attracted the cultivators whose divine sense fell into it, almost making them lose themselves in it. After waking up, many cultivators' faces changed greatly, and they hurriedly fled, not daring to look around again. Following Xiao Hua's spell, a huge palm gradually appeared in mid-air. This karmic hand was black and white, and dazzling rings of light constantly appeared from the finger, then fell into the air. These rings of light rapidly spread in the air, and at the same time, scattered into the void. Waves of obscure fluctuations distorted the image of the entire mountain peak. The cultivators watching from afar were extremely puzzled, not knowing what Xiao Hua was doing. However, at this time, they didn't have time to think too much, because in addition to the strange rings of light that Xiao Hua's karmic hand was emitting day and night above the soaring Dragon Mountain range, at this time, the sky above the ruins was once again emitting thunderous sounds. The original brilliance of the sun and moon was now gradually disappearing, and the entire sky began to darken. Then, boom, boom, boom. Huge roars began to endlessly reverberate. From the horizon, demonic pillars fell from the sky like huge nails, nailing down from the dark sky. Each demonic pillar was filled with billowing demonic qi and streams of blood, and ferocious devils roared in the demonic pillars. Moreover, as soon as the demonic pillars penetrated the air, there were devils with wings, whimpering as they flew out from the demonic qi. And when the demonic pillars went deeper, there were devils wearing demonic armors, brandishing demonic weapons, and stepping on demonic beasts rushing out. They didn't put the human race in their eyes at all. One demonic pillar after another fell, gradually covering the entire sky, and surging towards the ground of the ruins. Boom, 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 boom. The demonic pillars fell, but in just a moment, the entire world was shaking. The dark and bloody sky had already begun to shake violently, and patches of fiery red appeared from the clouds, and flames began to burn between the demonic pillars. Within the flames, there were naturally tens of thousands of human cultivators who formed teams and pounced towards the demonic pillars. They either activated their flames to burn the demonic pillars or activated their magic treasures to kill the devils. As a result, the darkness in the sky mixed with the color of blood gradually spread to the entire sky. However, in the darkness, large clusters of flames also covered the sky and covered the earth, contending with the demonic aura. It seemed as if the sky was going to be burned through. Flames and darkness were so clearly separated, yet they were also attacking each other. The entire ruins had truly become a furnace of heaven and earth. Roar, dong dong. As soon as the battle began, The sound of war drums could be heard and war songs could be heard. From the mountains and hills on the ground, groups of human cultivators who were lying in ambush rushed into the sky. These cultivators formed teams with arrays and flying ships. Powerful attacks condensed into beams of light that shot into the demonic pillars, killing the devils that escaped from the demonic pillars. Seeing that these teams all flew out from the demonic pillars, it was clear that the conference hall also had a deep understanding of the flaws of the Great Realm Protection Formation. In order to resist the attacks of the devils, they had put in a lot of effort. However, the power of the demonic spirit of the demonic formation was also not to be underestimated. The demonic pillars were like fireworks that shot into the sky, nailing down continuously. There were truly many demonic pillars. Although the majority of the demonic pillars were blocked by human cultivators, there were still many devils that escaped from the demonic pillars and began to attack from the back of the human team. Moreover, these demonic pillars also became thicker and expanded in the sky, gradually invading the ruins. Towards these demonic pillars that penetrated deep into the ruins, the flames of the Great Realm Protection Formation began to automatically burn them. The human cultivators who were guarding in the distance also hurriedly flew over to kill them. Coincidentally, the mountain peak that Xiao Hua was sitting on was also a flaw of the Great Realm Protection Formation. As the demonic formation spread out, a demonic pillar that was several li thick fell with a boom. It was precisely the light shadow of the Hand of Karma that was already more than 1,000 li above Xiao Hua's head. Ao. That demonic pillar had just touched the multicolored light that shot up into the sky from the Hand of Karma, and the arrogant devils inside immediately let out miserable shrieks. They simply didn't have the chance to come out of the demonic aura before they turned into powder. The light shadow of the Hand of Karma was so dazzling in the blood and fire, and so terrifying in the demonic aura. When all the devils and devils saw the unparalleled power, they hurriedly urged their bodies to fly out of the demonic pillars. However, just as they flew out, the multicolored light pierced into their devil bodies like needles. No matter if it was the devils with wings on their backs or the devils wearing armor, or even the devils that appeared like phantoms, they were all torn into pieces. The devils inside the demonic pillars panicked. Each and every one of them used the demonic aura and blood water to go against the flow, wanting to escape back to the demonic formation. However, the power of the demonic pillars wasn't something that the devils could resist. Therefore, each and every one of the devils fell into the Hand of Karma like moths to a flame and were annihilated. The demonic pillars crossed the soaring dragon mountain range and had already spread into the depths of the ruins. The burning clouds were also ignited around the demonic pillars. A great battle suddenly broke out, and a gale began to blow in the ruins. The heaven and earth vital energy in the ruins poured into the Great Realm Protection Formation from the bottom. Following the flames that filled the sky and countless brilliance, the heaven and earth vital energy in the entire ruins was completely stirred up. Hurricanes began to form, blowing across the ground like flying sand and stones. In the sky, the void seemed to be burned by the flames. Cryptic fluctuations were emitted from the black and white cracks. Some of these fluctuations fell into the demonic pillars, instantly extinguishing half of the demonic pillars. Sometimes, they also fell into the troops of the human cultivators, easily killing hundreds of them. The entire sky and the entire earth were in a fierce battle. Although the great battle had just begun, it was already so intense. No one could imagine how the elites of the ruins would deal with even more devils outside the Great Realm Protection Formation. After all, there were devil monarchs and devil emperors there. Compared to other places, the soaring dragon mountain range was much quieter. Within 1,000 li of the karmic hand, there was not a single devil. Not even devil chi and blood could be seen. That halo and fluctuations were still rotating and spreading in an orderly manner. This stalemate that was exchanged with blood and fire lasted for several months. The flames of the Great Realm Protection Formation were no longer pure crimson red. They began to be mixed with wisps of blood and devil chi. Although there were very few wisps of blood, it was already enough to explain everything. During this period, many human cultivators flew to the side of the karmic hand. They seemed to be looking for Xiao Hua, but in the face of this strange brilliance, no one was able to get close. They had no choice but to return empty-handed. However, on this day, The battle cries did not stop. The halo of the karmic hand began to slowly retract. Xiao Hua's figure also appeared in the halo as he formed hand seals. At this time, Xiao Hua was so illusory and so otherworldly. An indescribable aura was emitted from his body. This aura seemed to be able to control heaven and earth. It also seemed to be able to control life and death. It even seemed to be able to sort out karma. All the words in the mortal world were unable to describe this thing that could only exist in the upper realm. When the halo of the karmic hand retracted into Xiao Hua's body, Xiao Hua's figure completely solidified. 2 balls of flames flickered in Xiao Hua's eyes. Xiao Hua opened his eyes. Xiao Hua's eyes were shining like stars, but they were also filled with doubt. Xiao Hua ignored the battle in front of him and muttered again, "The ruins is indeed the upper realm. All the laws of the cultivation world do not exist here. The karmic hand seals that could not be used in the hidden immortal continent are not sluggish here. All the karma that can be detected is revealed like a small stream. Although, this Xiao is still unable to clearly see the survival of the ruins, unable to clearly see the outcome of this war between humans and devils, this Xiao can finally see what this Xiao wants to see. It's very strange. Yu Mingxin actually has another opportunity. She doesn't need to go with this Xiao at all. What is this opportunity of hers? Could it be that the devil race is bound to lose in this war? Also, that great desolate starstorm that affected the entire cultivation world is fake? Will the ruins be destroyed in this great desolate starstorm? Of course, if the devil race is defeated, the teleportation channel will naturally be restored, and the cultivators of the ruins can of course go to Tai Bai Star Realm and escape this calamity. Of course Yu Mingxin can escape. But if that's the case, why would the fragrance cult's inheritance be handed over to this Xiao? Also, although this Xiao is unable to see the outcome of this war, this Xiao can still vaguely know that the key to the war is at the southwest border. Could it be that the devil race has long since set up an ambush at the southwest border? This Xiao's fortune gate sweeping through the southwest devil race is precisely to destroy the devil emperor's wishful thinking? But the question is, what is the devil emperor's plan at the southwest border? Could it be that the devil emperor and the Shundao sect are looking for fire and earth magnetism? No, that's impossible. The Shundao sect is built on magnetism at Mount Yong'an. If this Xiao can discover the fire and earth magnetism at the bottom of the cliff, then Yun Che can discover it even more. It's also impossible that the devil race doesn't know. Therefore, the fire and earth magnetism is definitely not what they are looking for. No matter what, the southwest border is definitely the center of the devil emperor's attention. If we want to win this war, we must start from there. Thinking of this, Xiao Hua's eyes lit up. He looked around with some surprise and frowned. Oh, what's going on? It's only been a few breaths, and the devil race has already started a large-scale attack. Hee. At this time, the scholar cultivator Xiao Hua laughed and said, "You're wrong, fellow immortal. The devil race has been attacking the ruins for more than a few months. Fellow immortal, you're just using a karma art. You don't know how long it has been. A few months." Xiao Hua's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at the flames in the sky, the devil clouds brazenly attacking the flames, the roars of devil beasts and devils, and the war cries of human cultivators. He said indifferently, "The war has just begun. Forget a few months, even if it's a few years, it's nothing." While speaking, Xiao Hua's heart moved. He released the green-robed Xiao Hua and ordered, "Fellow Daoist, please use your nascent soul to explore the surrounding." Chapter 4161. Okay. Green-robed Xiao Hua rushed into his lower dantian and flew away with his 8th tribulation scattered nascent soul. Sensing the disappearing nascent soul, Xiao Hua sighed and said, "Damn it, I don't only have 1/8 tribulation scattered nascent soul here, there are more than 100 of them. Unfortunately, these scattered nascent souls are spirits and can't fuse with the world's vital energy in the ruins. Although they've passed the lightning tribulation and reached the realm of spirit and flesh, they're still not real spirits and can't come out at will, especially in the eyes of the devil race. Flesh and blood are their delicacies, and spirits are even more so. I won't let them eat raw for nothing. Yeah, if 100 of you can come out, it'll be a great help. That would be another great help. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua also agreed. Fellow Daoist Soul Cultivator. Xiao Hua hovered in midair, releasing his spiritual sense to scout for any signs of activity within a 5,000-kilometer radius. Has there been any movement from the spiritual sense marker we set up on the Great Snow Mountain? Okay, I'll let you know. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua answered, we've been in the ruins for dozens of years, and you've been trapped in the illusion for dozens of years. Then, we've been collecting wandering souls in the ruins for dozens of years. I've been continuously using soul cultivation secret techniques, but unfortunately, the mark of our divine sense doesn't seem to exist, and I can't sense it anymore. Alas, I also divined about this matter just now. Xiao Hua shook his head, I don't have any clues, and I don't know if we can leave through the teleportation formation. No matter what, we can't just rely on the going southway north technique this time, we must use the teleportation formation. Scholar Xiao Hua suggested. Dao Sect's teleportation formation is also borrowed from my soul cultivation technique. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua retorted unconvinced, I think it's enough to rely on the going southway north technique. Big brothers. Devil Spirit Xiao Hua suddenly spoke, I think what you said is reasonable, but I also have a plan, I don't know if you're willing to listen. Oh, come here. Xiao Hua was slightly stunned and said, I think, since Big Brother can transform into a devil race, we might as well sneak into the devil formation and wait for them to retreat to enter the devil world. Big Brother, don't you have the space vein of the devil world and Dawn Rain continent? If it's possible, we'll return to the Dawn Rain continent from that demon-resisting valley. That's easy for you to say. Confucian Cultivator Xiao Hua berated, how could it be as easy as you say? The devil race that besieged the ruins seemed to be different from the devil race that we encountered on the Dawn Rain continent. Since the ruins were the upper realm, the devil world that besieged them must also be the upper realm. It must be different from the devil world that we know. In this way, not only will we not be able to find the spatial meridian that leads to the demon-resisting valley, we will be walking right into a trap and be killed by the demon lord or even the demon race that is more powerful than the demon lord. Fellow immortal, you're wrong. Soul Cultivator Xiao Hua retorted, I think what that brat Mo Ling said is very reasonable. Demons are called demon monarchs and demon emperors, which is the same as what we learned in the Dawn Rain continent. Although we don't know whether this demon realm is the same as that demon realm, it's still possible, right? How would we know if we don't go and take a look? Don't Confucian cultivators emphasize that it's better to travel 10,000 miles than to read 10,000 books? Fellow Taoists, there's no need to say any more. Xiao Hua said with a smile, this place isn't like the heavenly prison. Inside the heavenly prison, we can directly go to the Great Snow Mountain through the time fragments, but this place is the ruins. I don't have the confidence to pass through the barrier between the two worlds, so we can only rely on the teleportation array. Especially if we rely on the Fragrance Cult's teleportation array that can break through realms. Moreover, the matter of the demon realm is only one possibility. If you and I enter the demon realm, we'll be in the dark. Everywhere we look up and down, there will be devils. Any demon lord that we meet might see through us. It's more dangerous than the burial immortal continent, so let's not talk about this matter. At this point, Xiao Hua was afraid that the two doppelgangers would continue to argue, so he changed the topic and said with a smile, oh right, this time, we've been traveling in the ruins for more than 10 years. It can be said that we've swept away all the wandering souls that have accumulated in the ruins for hundreds of years. These hundreds of millions of wandering souls fell into the space. Not only did the land on the yin side of the space expand 100 times, but the space also expanded once again. On the Shenhua continent, other than the original Fortune Gate disciples, there are 10 times more people living here. Moreover, these newborn babies are equally outstanding. With so many disciples, fellow Daoist Green-Robed's Fortune Gate won't be able to hold on. Fellow Taoists, are you interested in opening up branches and spreading leaves on the Shenhua continent and passing down your orthodoxy? Haha, fellow Daoists' words really hit the nail on the head. Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, previously, when fellow Daoist Green-Robed established the sect, I wanted to get a few disciples to teach, but that guy refused to let me. After that, We cultivated bitterly in the heavenly prison and didn't see any life or death, so I was too lazy to think about it. Now that the fortune gate has taken shape, it's time for me to make a Wantsu manner. I am also interested. Soul cultivator Xiao Hua also fought with Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua. Hee. You all are too late. Dragon Vein Xiao Hua laughed. I's disciple has already accepted many disciples for I. Now that the ocean in my space has taken shape, my dragon race can reproduce and live in the ocean. While speaking, green-robed Xiao Hua turned around and roughly explained the situation. Xiao Hua looked at the increasingly dark flames in the sky and didn't say anything for a long time. The situation of the battle was not out of Xiao Hua's expectations. Although the human race still held the advantage in the battle inside the ruins and killed many devils in these few months, this was after all the ruins, the foundation of the human race, so they should have the advantage. The battle outside the ruins was not optimistic. Under the siege of the demonic formation, the realm-protecting formation was already in danger. The human cultivators who were fighting against the demonic formation had also suffered heavy casualties. All the sect leaders and elders in the conference hall stayed in the formation to command. However, the ruins were really too big. Even if all the sect masters and elders moved out, they couldn't completely control the grand formation. Who is in charge of the defense in the southwest? After thinking for a moment, Xiao Hua suddenly asked. Green-robed Xiao Hua thought for a moment and said, one is Shandao Sect's sect master Yun Che. The other is Misty School's sect master Liu Wuxia. However, both of them are at the edge of the southwest border. Moreover, there aren't many devils in the southwest border, so there aren't many troops stationed there. It's a diversion tactic again. Xiao Hua sneered. The Devil Emperor is best at using these kinds of trick. Green-robed Xiao Hua said anxiously, should we inform the conference hall? I do want to inform, but the problem is whether the conference hall will believe it. Xiao Hua said with a bitter smile, we'll just wait here. All right. Green-robed Xiao Hua nodded and prepared to urge the invisible nascent soul to return to his lower dantian. However, at this moment, he seemed to have thought of something and said, oh right, Wu Tian seems to have something to ask you. Go and ask him. Oh, what is it? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned. Green-robed Xiao Hua shrugged and replied, how would I know? I asked him, but he didn't tell me at all. I understand. Xiao Hua nodded and sent green-robed Xiao Hua back. Then, he brought Wu Tian out of the space. When Wu Tian saw Xiao Hua, he immediately understood what happened. With a plop, he knelt in front of Xiao Hua and kowtowed, Master, oh? What's wrong? Xiao Hua was surprised. He helped Wu Tian up and asked, Disciple, why are you bowing so respectfully for no reason? Forgive Disciple for being unworthy. Disciple has something to discuss with Master. Wu Tian stood up with a careful expression and replied in a low voice. Speak. Xiao Hua really didn't understand what Wu Tian wanted to do. However, after hearing Wu Tian's words, Xiao Hua was stunned on the spot. It turned out that Wu Tian wanted to stay in the ruins and earnestly asked Xiao Hua to agree. However, when Xiao Hua checked Wu Tian's cultivation, he couldn't help but sigh slightly. He already understood why Wu Tian wanted to stay in the ruins. When Wu Tian became Xiao Hua's disciple, he was already a gold core stage cultivator. In the hidden immortal continent, he could be considered a famous Dao cultivator. However, his basic cultivation method was wrong and he fell into the trap of a Confucian cultivator. Therefore, after he became Xiao Hua's disciple, he personally taught him a cultivation method. After Xiao Hua accepted Yuan Ya, Yu Zhongquan, Chang Yuan and the others, Wu Tian was still the disciple with the highest cultivation under Xiao Hua. In the 6,000 years in the heavenly prison, whether it was Liu Yi, Yu Zhongquan, Fu Jiwen, or Yuan Ya, their cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds. Each of them had already surpassed Wu Tian and reached the high stage of the 6th grade of essence energy or even the 7th grade of essence energy. On the contrary, Wu Tian, who had the highest cultivation now, was only at the late stage of the void refinement realm, which was the high stage of the 6th grade of essence energy. This cultivation was already extraordinary in the hidden immortal continent. However, compared to the other disciples under Xiao Hua, Wu Tian was nothing. Of course, compared to the 6,000 years, the previous few hundred years were also nothing. Wu Tian's future achievements might not be worse than Liu Yi and the others. However, the higher the cultivation level, the more Wu Tian was alarmed. The reason for his alarm was not only that his progress couldn't be compared to his fellow disciples, but also that he found that his foundation could no longer support his great Tao. In other words, Wu Tian, who had touched a trace of the heavenly Tao, had a premonition that he couldn't pass the lightning tribulation and ascend to become an immortal. If Wu Tian was still in the hidden immortal continent, then Wu Tian had no choice but to walk step by step until the sky turned dark and hit a wall. But now Wu Tian was in the ruins, the edge of the upper realm, a place where he didn't need to pass the lightning tribulation to advance. Moreover, after fighting in the ruins for more than 10 years, Wu Tian also understood some of the cultivation methods of the cultivators of the ruins to cultivate the primordial spirit. This cultivation method was different from cultivating the nascent soul. Wu Tian could cultivate from the beginning without worrying about his foundation being unstable. With this choice, Wu Tian naturally had other thoughts. Seeing Xiao Hua staring at him without uttering a word, Wu Tian felt a little scared in his heart. He hurriedly knelt down and said, "Master, disciple only now understands the reason why Master didn't use cultivation to determine seniority. Disciple's aptitude is far from being comparable to Liu Yi and the other junior brothers. Moreover, disciple has cultivated wrongly from the beginning. At this time, there is simply no way to turn back. Disciple staying in the ruins is an opportunity for myself and also an opportunity for the Fortune Gate. Disciple is still a branch of the Fortune Gate. Disciple is also willing to help Master spread his branches in the ruins." Chapter 4162. Of course. At this point, Wu Tian changed the topic and said respectfully, "If Master doesn't agree, disciple will not mention this matter in the future and will only focus on cultivation." Haha, get up. How could Xiao Hua not know Wu Tian's thoughts? Every cultivator wanted to fight for a chance to cultivate under the ruthless heaven and earth, and Wu Tian was no exception. So Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Master doesn't blame you for having such thoughts. You have your own thoughts and want to stay in the ruins and create your own world. Master is more than happy. However, Master doesn't have the heart to leave you here without properly guiding your cultivation." "Thank you, Master." Wu Tian got up and said in shame, "Disciple has shamed Master. Actually, what you've said is nothing to me at all." Xiao Hua explained again, "First of all, Master has the Kunlun mirror. When Master ascends, if you feel that you can't pass the tribulation, you can follow Master to the immortal world. Disciple has already thought of this possibility." Wu Tian shook his head and said, "Disciple can't cultivate well in the hidden immortal continent. How can I cultivate better in the immortal world?" Mn. Secondly, Xiao Hua said again, "Master is proficient in Buddhist secret arts. I can let you reincarnate and cultivate again, Uwa." Wu Tian was shocked, but after thinking for a while, he still shook his head. "If I reincarnate and cultivate again, will Wu Tian still be Wu Tian?" "All right." Xiao Hua nodded slightly and said, "Finally, Master wants to tell you that the ruins is definitely not a paradise. What you see is only what you want to see. The mutual deception here is not any worse than the hidden immortal continent. Master, at least in this place, disciple is not afraid of being attacked by Confucian cultivators." Wu Tian argued. "Not only that." Xiao Hua raised his hand and pointed to the sky. "The outcome of this battle with the devil race is still unknown. Maybe under the devil race's large-scale attack, the ruins will really become the ruins. Also, according to the news sent back by the disciples outside the ruins, a large-scale great desolate starstorm has already appeared. Many of the moon god realm star regions will inevitably be involved, and the ruins is one of them. Even if the cultivators of the ruins managed to escape the claws of the devils, I'm afraid that it would be difficult for them to escape from the Primeval starburst." Wu Tian naturally didn't know what a great desolate starstorm was, but after seeing Xiao Hua's solemn expression, he wavered a little. However, after a short moment, Wu Tian firmly said, "Master, this disciple has already thought about it. How can there not be a life and death trial? How could there be no natural disasters? When I was on the Shenhua continent, I used divination techniques to check. Although my cultivation base is low, I can sense that I have not encountered any bloodshed in the short term. Xiao Hua nodded slightly. Of course, he also thought of Yu Mingxin. The result of his divination for Yu Mingxin was not a bad omen. Now, after hearing Wu Tian's words, Xiao Hua felt that the cultivators of the ruins must have had other opportunities and would not be wiped out. Disciple, it's fine if you want to leave. Xiao Hua saw that Wu Tian had already made up his mind and didn't say anything more. He only urged him to stay. However, Master feels that you should wait until after this battle. If the devils win, Master can still take you and escape, but you. I'm afraid it's not easy to escape from the hands of the devils. Master. Wu Tian replied, people often say that when you are placed in a death trap, you will be reborn. This disciple is always under Master's wings. When can I soar alone in the sky? This disciple pleads Master to let this disciple leave now. Xiao Hua looked at the determination in Wu Tian's eyes and seemed to see the brave Zhong Xiao Hua from God knows how many years ago. He nodded and took out 2 spatial rings from his bosom and handed them to Wu Tian. Since you have already decided, then Master won't say anything. These are cultivation methods, medicinal pills, magic treasures, and other things. You can use them yourself. And you can also use them when you establish a sect for our fortune gate. Yes, this disciple understands. Wu Tian took them and put them away without looking at them carefully. This is the upper realm. I'm afraid it's not easy to cultivate a nascent soul. Master will give you a primordial spirit cultivation method as well as a nascent soul cultivation method. You can deal with them yourself. Xiao Hua explained and stretched out a finger. In addition, Master has used the karma method several times and has also comprehended some things. I will pass it to you now. Master. Wu Tian couldn't help but cry. Although he was a 6,000 years old cultivator, he was still affected by Xiao Hua's strong familial love. Xiao Hua's finger flashed and touched Wu Tian's forehead. Wu Tian felt the whole world fall into his mind and then he fainted. Sigh. Xiao Hua looked at Wu Tian's body that was lying on the ground and slowly trembling. An obscure fluctuation spread out from Wu Tian's forehead. Xiao Hua knew that Wu Tian was absorbing what he had imparted to him. He sighed and raised his head. At this time, in the sky above Xiao Hua's head, a fire snake rushed out from the protective formation. A cultivator wearing a battle armor stepped out from the fire. Wasn't that the heavy flow sect's Huafei? Huafei's battle armor was a little damaged and there were black stains on it. It was obviously stained by the devil race. Huafei's hair was a little messy and his breathing was unstable. The protective light around his body was also different. When Huafei landed on the ground, he bowed and said, Dao Master Xiao, I am Heavy Flow Sect's Huafei. Xiao Hua looked at him indifferently and cupped his hands casually. Dao Master Hu doesn't need to be so polite. We have already met on the transmission artifact. Indeed. Huafei laughed. When I learned that Dao Master Xiao killed the Eternal Peace Mountain's Devil King, I knew that Dao Master Xiao is an upright person. You are definitely not a devil race spy. Xiao Hua was already stubborn. He looked at Huafei indifferently and said, Dao Master Hua, if you have something to say it directly. This Xiao doesn't understand beating around the bush. Huafei was a little embarrassed and said with a smile, previously, some of the sect masters in the meeting hall misunderstood Dao Master Xiao and the Fortune Gate's disciples. Now, this Hua is here to apologize on their behalf. The ruins is at the most critical moment. The survival of the ruins depends on this battle. Therefore, I ask Dao Master and the Fortune Gate's disciples to fight and help the ruins human race defeat the devil race. Ha! Xiao Hua spread his arms, stretched his body, yawned, rubbed his eyes, and said with a smile, Fellow Daoist Hua, I just woke up and haven't washed my face yet. My mind is in a mess, so I don't quite understand what you're saying. Dao Master Hua, please turn back and wait for this Xiao to go back to sleep and wash my face. It won't be too late to explain to this Xiao then. Dao Master Xiao. Huafei smiled bitterly. Just as he was about to say something, Xiao Hua was lying in the air with his eyes closed and his mouth and nose started snoring. Ai! Huafei sighed helplessly. He knew that the meeting hall's actions had hurt Xiao Hua's heart. At this time, no matter what he said, He would only be humiliating himself. It was better not to say anything. Therefore, Hu Fei sighed and rushed into the air. Then, a fire pillar fell from the flame high up in the sky and caught Hu Fei's body. As the fire pillar disappeared, Hu Fei's body disappeared. After more than 30 days, the black qi in the flame high up in the sky became thicker. The wisps of blood in the black qi became clearer and more bloody. This bloody smell was so deep in the flame that a kind of violent aura was gradually born in the whole world. From time to time, there would be some disharmonious things falling in this aura. It could be some magic treasures, spatial rings, battle armors, or even broken limbs. Of course, these things were nothing in the ruins now. Most of the things left behind were these things. However, through the realm-protecting Grand Array, they could still exist after falling so high. The quality of these broken magic treasures must be extraordinary. There were also the corpses of the fallen cultivators. Naturally, they had been tempered. Just as Xiao Hua was deep in thought, Wu Tian woke up. He stood up and knelt down for the 3rd time. This time, he could no longer speak. His eyes were filled with tears as he kowtowed with all his strength. At this time, any words would be useless. No need to be so childish. Xiao Hua helped him up and said, "You have become Master's disciple, but Master didn't give you much guidance. In the future, you will have to rely on yourself. It is normal for Master to do more for you. In the ruins, disciple will not tarnish Master's name. I will also make the Fortune Gate a big sect in the ruins." Wu Tian gritted his teeth and said word by word. Xiao Hua nodded. "This is what you think. Master doesn't need you to bear anything. As long as you live well and cultivate well, it will be fine." With that, Xiao Hua brought Fu Jiwen and the other disciples out of the space. When the disciples heard that Wu Tian wanted to stay, they were surprised, but they understood in a moment. Although they were reluctant, after all, they had cultivated together for thousands of years. Thinking that Wu Tian's choice was extremely correct, everyone gave him their blessings and didn't blame him. After the disciples exchanged their tokens, Xiao Hua looked at Liu Yi and the others and said with a smile, "The ruins is the upper realm. Whether it is the resources or the heaven and earth origin energy, it is much better than the hidden immortal continent. Especially, this is the cultivation world. There is no persecution of Confucian cultivators. It is most suitable for our Dao cultivators to cultivate. If any of you want to stay here, Master will not stop you. However, if you want to stay, you will have to pay a price. Your thousands of years of cultivation will turn into flowing water. Senior brother Wu has his own path, we have our own path." Fu Jiwen said with a smile, "Disciple is different from senior brother Wu Tian. Disciple is determined to follow Master. Master, please don't drive disciple away." Afterwards, Liu Yi and the others spoke up as well. They were younger than Wu Tian, and the disciples of Confucianism and Buddhism were obviously not suitable to stay in the ruins. Those who practiced Taoism had all started from the Qi refinement realm, so they did not have an unstable foundation like Wu Tian. Therefore, none of the disciples were willing to stay. Seeing that the other disciples weren't willing to stay, Wu Tian's face became a little hot. Xiao Hua was very sharp and noticed it. He smiled and said, "Disciple, Fu Jiwen said it well. Everyone has their own path. Master didn't understand before, but now, Master wants to encourage you to stay. After Master ascends to the upper realm, maybe I will come to the ruins to look for you. Many thanks for Master's understanding." Wu Tian's heart was slightly relieved. Chapter 4163. Liu Yi and the other disciples chatted with Wu Tian for a while before reluctantly bidding farewell and returning to Shenhua continent. After all the disciples left, Xiao Hua said to Wu Tian, "It's a war now, and there's no pure land in the entire ruins. Previously, I used divination to investigate, and the southwest of the ruins should be the key to the war. As long as it's not near the southwest border, the other places should be fine. Of course, the Soaring Dragon Mountain Range is an opportunity for some people, but for you, I don't know." Disciple understands. Wu Tian looked at the abandoned cave abode in the distance and said, "Then disciple will go to the cave abode that I used to cultivate in. It won't be too late to come out after the Daoist Demon War is over." "All right." Xiao Hua raised his hand and waved it slightly. His heart ached a little, just like when Little Black and Little Yellow left. Although Wu Tian didn't spend as much time with him as Little Black and Little Yellow, he was still his disciple's disciple. Xiao Hua, who liked to gather and not part, couldn't bear for him to leave like this. Disciple will go now. Wu Tian bit his lips and knelt down to kowtow a few more times. Only then did he move and hide in the cave abode in the distance after looking back several times. Sigh, this child. Green-robed Xiao Hua's voice sounded. It's a war now, and there's danger everywhere. Why didn't he hide in the space and leave after the war? He's afraid that after entering the space, the decision he made with great difficulty would change. Xiao Hua replied in a low voice. After all, when a person is used to an environment, it's difficult to leave. If he thinks about leaving again, I'm afraid he really won't leave. Then, his ambition will be wiped clean. I think it's a good thing for him to stay in the ruins. After all, his cultivation foundation isn't stable, and he definitely won't be able to ascend to the immortal world in the end. However, the ruins are in danger now. Not to mention the devil race, there's also the chaos star storm. Neither of these are things that Wu Tian can handle by himself. Wu Tian is different from other disciples, Xiao Hua said. He's naturally sensitive and knows how to avoid danger. Moreover, his divination skills are quite good. If he feels that he can stay, then there's no big problem. Didn't I divine for Yu Mingxin before? Even with Yu Mingxin's cultivation, there wouldn't be any problems, let alone Wu Tian. Perhaps there will be an end to the Daoist demon war here, or perhaps the transmission channel from the ruins to the Tai-Bai astral boundary can be repaired after the Daoist demon war. In short, the heavens are virtuous. When a door is closed, a window will be opened. Humph, here it comes again. While Xiao Hua was speaking, the green-robed Xiao Hua gave a cold snort. These cultivators from the discussion hall are really thick-skinned. So noisy. Xiao Hua didn't know what was going on, so he responded and looked up at the sky. At this time, two young cultivators wearing battle armor descended from the sky. They were the ones that Xiao Hua had seen in Yun Che's communication artifact. At that time, Yun Che had also introduced them. They were Zhong Jing of Yanghong Hall and Fei Cheng of Jingfei Mountain. The two of them had an extremely awkward expression on their faces. Although they saw Xiao Hua looking up at the sky from afar and ignoring the two of them had no choice but to go forward. When they flew in front of Xiao Hua, the two of them bowed and said, Daoist Xiao, we are Zhong Jing and Fei Cheng. We have specially come to apologize to Daoist Xiao. Unfortunately, when the two of them finished speaking, they didn't see Xiao Hua open his mouth, nor did they see any strength to help them up. The two of them stole a glance and saw that Xiao Hua's nostrils were facing the two of them. His black nostrils seemed to be mocking them. Daoist Xiao. The two of them felt helpless, but they didn't dare to straighten up. They still said, previously, the two of us were blinded by lard. We wanted to borrow Daoist Xiao's devil arts, to attack the fortune gate and take the opportunity to raise the prestige of our two sect. We even wanted to take the fortune gate's forces into our sect. We were really wrong. Although 100 deaths are nothing to be regretted, if it weren't for the fact that we were in a war and wanted to leave our bodies to deal with the devil race, we would definitely have declared our sincerity in front of Daoist Xiao. Today, outside the Realm Protection Grand Array, the four sects' sect masters and over 10,000 spirit refinement and spirit return cultivators were killed by the devil monarch. And that mysterious devil monarch still hasn't appeared. Daoist Xiao, our cultivation is shallow, and it's difficult for us to be the devil monarch's opponent, let alone the devil formation's opponent. We hope that Daoist Xiao can take into account that we are all humans and help us ruins cultivators. After this battle, the two of us will definitely give up our positions as sect masters and leave the ruins, never to return. Zhong Jing and Fei Cheng had obviously thought about it long ago. They came to Xiao Hua and didn't shirk at all. They spoke frankly about their mistakes and even asked Xiao Hua to help them with the safety of the human race. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua had just sent Wu Tian away and was in a bad mood. How could he listen to their long-winded words? Once again, Zhong Jing and Fei Cheng tried their best to talk to them. They bowed and talked for a full hour, but all they saw was 2 nostrils. They didn't even give them 2 white nuts. Helpless, the 2 of them could only retreat dejectedly. "Granny!" the green-robed Xiao Hua shouted, "These bullshit cultivators, if they knew this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? When they sent more than 10 teams to monitor my Fortune Gate's lightning boat, they weren't like this. Now that they can't defeat the devil race, they pretended to come here to repent. If apologies were useful, would there be any need for weapons? These 2 sect masters can be considered to be sincere in their apologies. The 2 of them bowed and apologized for a long time with their identities as Dao Transformation Realm cultivators. In the ruins, this is unbelievable. Of course, I don't know what they are thinking, but the situation is stronger than them. They have no choice but to lower their heads. Oh, could it be that their so-called self-abasement and leaving the ruins is also fake? Of course it's not fake. Xiao Hua replied indifferently, "These words are the price for us to take action. Even if we agree, the 100 sects in the discussion hall won't agree. Isn't Tan Yu going to take the lead?" Buddha Body couldn't help but ask. The number of wandering souls dying in battle is increasing. The number of human cultivators can't be compared to the devil race. Nonsense. Xiao Hua said unhappily, "The ruins is about to be destroyed, but aren't we also killed by the devil emperor? How can we not take action? However, if you want us to take action, there must be a condition. TSK, we have been in the ruins for dozens of years, but we haven't seen any auction, nor have we seen any good treasures. The things that the incense cult gave us, we still have to return to them. We can't leave the ruins empty-handed, right? Namo Metria Buddha. Tan Yu is too greedy." Body smiled bitterly. "Aren't the Eternal Peace Mountain and Snow/Gate in our hands? Didn't the Shandao sect's sect master Yun Che also give some? There are also some gifts from the 8 southwestern sects. These are already quite a lot." "Ayo, little monk," Xiao Hua replied, "those are things that we should get. Our Fortune Gate disciples can't be bullied by them. If they don't show some sincerity, don't even think about making I take action." "That's right." Dragon Vein Xiao Hua also egged. "Didn't you see that after several months of fighting, only the Devil Monarch has taken action? The Devil Emperor is nowhere to be seen. At this time, there is no need for us to take action. The main meeting hall wants our Fortune Gate disciples to take action." The protective green-robed Xiao Hua said coldly, "They have a good plan." HMPH. Xiao Hua sneered, "Our Fortune Gate disciples have enough experience. There is no need for us to fight the devil race. If the main meeting hall is sincere, we can take part in the battle, but none of our disciples can come out." After saying that, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the mountain peak, carefully comprehending the benefits of using the karma technique. The ruins was the upper realm. The heavenly Tao rules here were different from the hidden immortal continent. Divine arts that directly connected to the great Tao like the karma method could only be unleashed here without any restrictions. The details within were all things that Xiao Hua could use in his cultivation. If Xiao Hua wanted to unleash the karma method in the hidden immortal continent, he had to comprehend these details thoroughly. Unknowingly, more than a month passed. The battle cries near the soaring Dragon Mountain range gradually disappeared, and the black chi between heaven and earth became thicker. Especially the flames that covered the sky, they became dimmer. Whether it was the devil chi or the blood-red light, they restrained the crimson flames. In this devil chi, vague figures of devils appeared. Human cultivators also appeared in the flames from time to time. It was very obvious that the boundary of the Great Daoist Devil War had been pushed into the realm protection formation by the devil race. The defense of the ruins was really at a critical point. Hee, fellow Daoist. On this day, when the fierce wind between heaven and earth stopped, green-robed Xiao Hua shouted, "Look who's here! Look who's here!" At this point, "I'm afraid your wishful thinking has been ruined, right?" "Ari, yes." Xiao Hua's eyes were still closed, but a bitter smile appeared on his face as he replied, "This must be Mo Lianchi's idea. When this girl came, I had no choice but to take action." "Of course." Green-robed Xiao Hua laughed and said, "Fellow Daoist, you only saved her life that day. Then, she sacrificed her lifespan to repay you. This karma has already been settled. However, later on, She secretly fell in love with you. Even I was envious of your luck with women. However, looking at the situation of the fragrant cult, it wasn't just the result of her being influenced by what she heard and saw since she was young. It was also the result of Mo Lianxi's instigation, right? It's not just that. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and explained, that moon beast was also a little strange. Its two fragments affected both I and her to a certain extent. As he spoke, more than 10 male and female cultivators flew over from the mountain range not far away. These cultivators looked a little miserable. Regardless of whether they were male or female, they all had injuries on their bodies. Especially the girl in front, the veil on her face was stained with blood, and her hair was a little messy. Wasn't she Yu Mingxin of the fragrant cult? Looking behind Yu Mingxin, Xiao Hua saw Yu Changming, Misty School's Yang Haoya, and Shendao Sect's Wn Wuxin and the others. The 10 cultivators flew in front of Xiao Hua and stopped respectfully. They bowed and saluted, "Greetings, Daoist Xiao." Xiao Hua looked at the injuries on their bodies and his gaze fell on Yu Mingxin. He opened his mouth and said, "Miss Yu, you're making things difficult for me."